Chapter 83. A young girl blocks the way. First encounter with Xiao Zi. Chu Fan, who was currently traveling, had no idea that his senior brother junior sister had come looking for him. Instead, he was leisurely sitting in the carriage, awaiting the assassination attempt by the Murong imperial family. 2 days quickly passed. During this time, Chu Fan's entourage remained very quiet. Simultaneously, Chu Fan also encountered many prodigies heading to the Immortal Dynasty to participate in the heavenly prodigy battle. These prodigies originally wanted to hitch a ride with Chu Fan, but upon seeing the banner of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, they quickly distanced themselves from him. After all, everyone clearly knew that although Chu Fan was currently fine, who knew if he would face an assassination attempt the next second? They certainly did not want to be cannon fodder. Just as Chu Fan and the Guo family were leisurely drinking tea inside the carriage, their entourage suddenly stopped. Chu Fan was slightly surprised by the stop, but he did not step out of the carriage. Instead, he sat quietly inside, waiting. Sure enough, after only a moment, Zhao Zilong arrived by his side. "Young master, a woman up ahead has blocked our entourage, claiming she needs to see the young master." When Zhao Zilong arrived next to the carriage, he respectfully spoke slowly to Chu Fan inside. "Oh, bring her over." Chu Fan hadn't expected a woman to block his carriage. He frowned slightly, but decided to have the woman brought over first. After hearing Chu Fan's words, Zhao Zilong rode his warhorse away from Chu Fan's carriage. Meanwhile, the young woman who had stopped Chu Fan's carriage was a woman dressed in Zi. This woman was Xiao Zi, who had traveled from the central region. After several days, she had finally reached Chu Fan. "I didn't expect senior brother's family to have decent strength. There's actually a presence at the Dharma aspect realm, and the strength of these soldiers isn't weak either, already surpassing the strength of many armies in the eastern region." While Xiao Zi waited for Zhao Zilong's reply, she was also observing the military strength of Chu Fan's entourage. She had originally thought the Prince of Jinbei's estate was very weak, but she hadn't expected there to be a presence at the Dharma aspect realm in this team, and the army itself was quite strong. Over the past few days, Xiao Zi had naturally seen the strength of the armies of other imperial dynasties in the eastern region. So the moment she saw Chu Fan's army, she knew that this army was among the most elite existences in the entire eastern region. Following this, Xiao Zi slowly followed Zhao Zilong toward Chu Fan's carriage. The closer she got to Chu Fan's carriage, the thicker the shock in Xiao Zi's eyes became. When she saw Luo Cheng, Xiao Zi was completely stunned. She hadn't expected the Prince of Jinbei's estate to even have an existence at the perfected Dharma aspect realm. However, just as she arrived next to the carriage, she felt a burst of qi lock onto her. Xiao Zi boldly looked in the direction of the locking qi. Then, she saw a general in golden armor staring intently at her. A king realm cultivator? Didn't senior brother say the Prince of Jinbei's estate was very weak? How could there be a king realm cultivator? At this moment, Xiao Zi was full of confusion. Her senior brother had told her that the strongest cultivator in the Prince of Jinbei's estate was only at the spirit roaming realm, but the current situation seemed to have far exceeded what her senior brother had described. "Young master, the person has been brought here." Just then, Zhao Zilong's voice pulled Xiao Zi back to reality. She looked toward the carriage with even greater curiosity. Then, she saw an elegant young master, like an exiled immortal, slowly step out of the carriage. Seeing this scene, Xiao Zi was completely stunned. Chu Fan's original appearance was already that of a rare handsome man in the entire eastern region, and with the enhancement of the Innate Dao Body, Chu Fan looked like an exiled immortal who had descended from the heavens. Chu Fan, who had just stepped out of the carriage, was also taken aback when he saw the woman in front of him. Her appearance could be said to be the most beautiful Chu Fan had ever seen. Of course, more importantly, Chu Fan sensed the aura of the late Dharma aspect stage on this woman. He knew that the woman's age was probably similar to his own, yet her cultivation had already reached the late Dharma aspect stage. From this, Chu Fan realized that she was extraordinary. "May I ask why the lady is looking for me?" Chu Fan asked the woman with suspicion in his heart, and, at the same time, he began to become vigilant. "You are Chu Fan, the heir apparent of the Prince of Jinbei. Do you recognize this jade pendant?" After hearing Chu Fan's words, Xiao Zi recovered her senses. A blush appeared on her ears, and she quickly tossed the jade pendant in her hand to Chu Fan. At the same time, she lowered her head, not daring to look at Chu Fan anymore, but her face, red all the way to her ears, betrayed her current state. As Chu Fan accepted the jade pendant, memories surfaced in his mind. This jade pendant belonged to his senior brother, Chu Chun. What is your relationship with the owner of this jade pendant? By this point, Chu Fan had already guessed that the woman in front of him must be from the Tianxian Holy Land, so he slowly began to question her. "This is my senior brother's jade pendant. My senior brother currently has matters that prevent him from coming to the eastern region, so he asked me to protect. After hearing Chu Fan's words, Xiao Zi directly explained the origin of the jade pendant. However, when it came to saying she was protecting the Prince of Jinbei's estate, she couldn't bring herself to say it, as the Prince of Jinbei's estate clearly didn't need her protection right now, since he was sent by senior brother. Come into the carriage to talk. After hearing Xiao Zi's words, Chu Fan understood. At the same time, he understood his senior brother's intentions. Chu Chan must have been worried about the safety of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, which is why he sent the young woman in front of him to protect it. But after seeing his own powerful entourage, the woman was too embarrassed to mention protecting the Prince of Jinbei's estate again. After hearing Chu Fan's words, the woman stared blankly, then followed Chu Fan into the carriage. Inside the carriage, Chu Fan put away the jade pendant in his hand, then took a cup of tea from Qing Yao and slowly drank it. May I ask for the lady's name? After Chu Fan finished his cup of tea, he slowly took another cup from Qing Yao and handed it to Xiao Zi, asking, My name is Xiao Zi. Young Master Chu Fan can call me Zi. Xiao Zi also recovered her senses at this time. She slowly accepted the tea Chu Fan offered and then answered his previous question. So it's Miss Xiao. May I ask what level of cultivation my senior brother has reached now? Chu Fan continued to ask after hearing Xiao Zi's words, and a hint of curiosity flashed in his eyes. Chapter 84. The 6 ancestors of the great Yin appear. 18 riders from Yin and Yun emerge. After all, Chu Chan possessed the supreme bone, and Chu Fan believed Chu Chen's cultivation was definitely not weak. Senior brother has already achieved a breakthrough to the king realm. It's just that. After hearing Chu Fan's words, Xiao Zi continued her reply. Just as she was about to explain the king realm, she suddenly remembered there was a king realm existence outside Chu Fan's carriage, so she stopped herself from explaining further. The king realm? It seems my elder brother's talent is indeed excellent. Chu Fan nodded after hearing Xiao Zi's words. He wasn't too surprised by his elder brother's current strength. After all, it was perfectly normal for someone with the supreme bone to achieve a breakthrough to the king realm. Following that, Chu Fan and Xiao Zi chatted casually. Night quickly fell. Chu Fan had a good understanding of the personality, talent, and standing of the young girl beside him in the Tianxian Holy Land. At the same time, from the girl's words, he learned the true strength of the Tianxian Holy Land. The Tianxian Holy Land truly lives up to its reputation as one of the top powers in the central region, possessing Saint King-level existences. Furthermore, there are probably great saint-level cultivators as well. As for the legendary quasi-emperors, I don't know if they exist. Chu Fan, who was setting up camp, slowly thought this to himself as he looked at the girl not far away. However, the fact that the Tianxian Holy Land possessed such strength was exactly what he had expected. No matter how powerful the Tianxian Holy Land was, it would not affect his determination to conquer the world. Since arriving in this world, he had always wanted to conquer the world and establish a supreme immortal dynasty. What's more, the system mall could only be opened after he established an imperial dynasty. Chu Fan believed that once he truly opened the system mall, his strength would definitely improve. At that time, forget the Tianxian Holy Land. Even the entire central region would be under Chu Fan's control. Meanwhile, Xiao Zi was not asleep. Instead, she was communicating with her guardian. As a true disciple of the Tianxian Holy Land, and also the personal disciple of the Sword Saint Grand Elder of the Tianxian Holy Land, Xiao Zi's guardian was a saint entry-level cultivator. The talent of Chu Chun Quasi-Saint's son's younger brother is terrifying. He should possess the legendary Innate Dao Body, and his cultivation has already reached the late Dharma aspect stage. If he had been cultivating in our Tianxian Holy Land all this time, his strength would probably be even greater than Chu Chun Quasi-Saint's son's. The guardian's voice slowly transmitted into Xiao Zi's mind. Xiao Zi was completely stunned upon hearing this voice. She had not expected this youthful, immortal-like boy to have already reached the late Dharma aspect stage, and furthermore, possessed the legendary Innate Dao Body. One must know that she had only achieved such strength and breakthrough with the aid of the resources of the Tianxian Holy Land. Yet, Chu Fan had achieved a breakthrough to the late Dharma aspect stage in the barren eastern region, and he also possessed the legendary Innate Dao Body. I never thought senior brother's younger brother would have such talent. This time, I must convince Master to bring him back. Then I will have one more junior brother. After learning of Chu Fan's talent, Xiao Zi began plotting how to get her master to take Chu Fan as a disciple. A smile curled up on Xiao Zi's lips sometime after she had this idea. A few more days quickly passed. During this time, the relationship between Chu Fan and Xiao Zi grew better, and Chu Fan learned more and more about the Tianxian Holy Land. Chu Fan now knew that King Realm cultivators were everywhere in the Tianxian Holy Land, true king realm cultivators were numerous, and even Saint entry-level cultivators, who were above the true king, were commonly seen in the Tianxian Holy Land. Only by truly stepping into the Saint realm could one serve as an inner elder in the Holy Land of the Tianxian Holy Land. Of course, if one could step into the Saint King level, they could make a name for themselves across the entire central region. For example, his elder brother's master was known as the Qing Feng Sword Saint. Young master, they have arrived. That day, as Chu Fan's carriage was moving along the road, Guijia's voice slowly sounded in his ear. Luo Cheng, summon the 18 riders of Yin. Do not let anyone escape. After hearing Guijia's words, Chu Fan understood who had arrived, and his voice slowly transmitted outside the carriage. Luo Cheng, who was outside the carriage, took out a horn from his embrace upon hearing Chu Fan's command. Following this, a horn blast resonated across the entire sky. After the horn sounded, clear hoofbeats appeared behind Chu Fan's group. Moments later, 18 black figures appeared beside Luo Cheng. These 18 black figures were precisely the 18 riders of Yin. At this moment, in front of Chu Fan's group was a crowd of mysterious people clad in golden armor. The number of these mysterious people reached several hundred, and behind this group of mysterious people in golden armor were tens of thousands of troops. They seemed to have been waiting for Chu Fan here for a long time. Standing in front of the mysterious people in golden armor was an old man radiating death chi. The aura emanating from the old man had already reached the late Dharma aspect stage. Sixth ancestor of Great Yin, our heir has been waiting for you for a long time. Zhao Zilong, riding his warhorse, slowly advanced to the front of Chu Fan's group, standing opposite the old man radiating death chi. He looked at the old man without the slightest surprise and spoke. As expected of someone from the Prince of Jinbei's estate, it seems you secretly control an unknown force, since you knew of our arrival so early. However, aren't you being a bit too confident? The sixth ancestor of Great Yin was momentarily stunned after hearing Zhao Zilong's words. Regaining his composure, he mocked Zhao Zilong. Zilong, leave this group of fellows to me. As for the army behind them, they are all yours. Just as the sixth ancestor of Great Yan's voice fell, Luo Cheng rode his warhorse, holding his silver spear, and slowly arrived beside Zhao Zilong. Beside Luo Cheng were the 18 riders of Yin, clad in black robes. Don't worry, a mere 10,000 troops are nothing to me. After hearing Luo Cheng's words, Zhao Zilong patted his chest and assured him. Upon hearing Zhao Zilong's reply, Luo Cheng immediately charged toward the sixth ancestor of Great Yin in front of them, holding his silver spear. At the same time, the 18 riders of Yin behind him drew the scimitars from their warhorses and followed Luo Cheng's direction, charging toward the hundreds of mysterious people in golden armor ahead. How is this possible? How does the Prince of Jinbei's estate have an existence at the perfected Dharma aspect realm? Moreover, the cultivation of these 18 people has all reached the Dharma aspect realm. How could the Prince of Jinbei's estate possess such powerful existences? Naturally, the sixth ancestor of Great Yin sensed the aura emanating from Luo Cheng and the others at this time. He looked in Luo Cheng's direction with a face full of disbelief. Chapter 85, An Overwhelming Battle. Yu Fei enters the western regions. One must know that even their Great Yin imperial family did not possess so many powerhouses at the Dharma aspect realm. Furthermore, the aura emanating from Luo Cheng had already reached the perfected Dharma aspect realm, a situation which was no longer something he could withstand. But the current Luo Cheng, leading the 18 riders of Yin before him, had no intention of stopping. Luo Cheng's silver spear transformed into a silver ray of light, striking directly toward the sixth ancestor of Great Yin. The pressure carried by this single strike caused the surrounding air to tremble. The aura radiating from Luo Cheng caused the surrounding yellow sand to swirl, as if at this moment he had become the protagonist between heaven and earth. Seeing this scene, the sixth ancestor of Great Yin dared not delay. He used the long sword in his hand to block Luo Cheng's spear strike. The moment the long sword and the long spear collided, the long sword in the sixth ancestor of Great Yan's hand was directly knocked away by the force transmitted from the long spear. Luo Cheng immediately changed his movements again, thrusting his long spear straight toward the sixth ancestor of Great Yan's chest. Sensing this change, the sixth ancestor of Great Yin hurriedly dodged. After narrowly avoiding the attack, he quickly rushed back to his precious sword and picked it up from the ground. At this time, Luo Cheng again held his silver spear and attacked in his direction. Subsequently, the two engaged in a fierce battle. Every strike of Luo Cheng's spear technique carried shocking killing intent, and behind him, a silver-white Dharma aspect clad in silver-white armor was continuously wielding a long spear, striking toward the sixth ancestor of Great Yin. As for the sixth ancestor of Great Yin, he also completely erupted with the terrifying chi on his body at this moment. A Dharma aspect also appeared behind him, looking like a sovereign. Of course, compared to Chu Fan's human emperor Dharma image, it was far inferior. The two thus engaged in battle. Although Luo Cheng's strength was much greater than that of the sixth ancestor of Great Yin, he was still unable to slay the sixth ancestor of Great Yin in a short period of time. As for the 18 riders of Yin Yun, they directly charged into the Golden Guard with the curved blades in their hands. Their strength had all reached the Dharma aspect realm, so facing the Golden Guard, who were merely at the Grotto Heaven realm, was nothing short of a massacre. A single charge resulted in the slaying of dozens of people. Moreover, the 18 riders of Yin Yun continued to charge. The Golden Guard could only defend passively, but at this point, their efforts had little effect besides slightly slowing down the slaughter speed of the 18 riders of Yin Yun. Just as the battle started on their side, Zhao Zilong also led the White Horse Volunteers directly into the army behind the Golden Guard. Although the strength of the Great Yin Imperial family's army was not weak, they appeared somewhat fragile in front of the White Horse Volunteers led by Zhao Zilong. A single charge resulted in the deaths of thousands of soldiers from the Great Yin Imperial family's army. Is this the strength of the Prince of Jinbei's estate? They could probably sweep across the entire Great Yin Imperial family, and even taking down the entire eastern region shouldn't be too difficult. Xiao Zi naturally also witnessed the battle ahead. She had not expected that she had severely underestimated the strength of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. At the same time, Xiao Zi did not forget to glance at Yuan Qingdu, who was wearing golden armor outside the carriage. Perhaps others did not know, but she, Xiao Zi, knew that the true strength of this man wearing golden armor had already reached the king realm. One must know that currently, the entire eastern region likely did not even have a single king realm cultivator, except, of course, for this general in golden armor before her. More importantly, Xiao Zi could tell that Yuan Qingdu was not old. It could be said that he was a prodigy even in the entire central region. The Prince of Jinbei's estate doesn't seem to be as weak as senior brother said. At this moment, Xiao Zi recalled the words of her senior brother. Looking at the power of the troops before her and the Prince of Jinbei's estate, described by her senior brother, Xiao Zi felt a sense of delusion. Is this the might of the 18 riders of Yin Yun? As expected, the strongest army during the Sui and Tang dynasties. Luo Yi, you only brought these 18 men to Wagong village. It seems he didn't underestimate Wagong village. Rather, he truly brought his trump card. Chu Fan began to feel shocked as he watched the 18 riders of Yin Yun carrying out the slaughter. The strength currently displayed by the 18 riders of Yin Yun had far exceeded their current realm. It could be said that even a troop composed of Dharma aspect realm cultivators would not possess their current decisiveness in killing. This troop was forged through the tempering of blood and fire. The great battle quickly lasted for an hour, but this battle held no great surprise for Chu Fan. As the sun slowly rose into the sky, the battle before them completely ended. Zhao Zilong led the troops, constantly clearing a path. Luo Cheng held the head of the sixth ancestor of Great Yin. Although the sixth ancestor of Great Yin's strength was not weak, he still appeared somewhat weak in front of Luo Cheng. Heir apparent, all enemies have been dealt with. Luo Cheng slowly approached Chu Fan's carriage and spoke to him. There was no ripple in his eyes, as if this matter was merely trivial to him. Hang the head here. This heir apparent wants everyone to understand that the Prince of Jinbei's estate is not to be trifled with. Chu Fan nodded toward Luo Cheng and instructed him. Afterward, he quietly sat inside the carriage, waiting to set off. Soon, Luo Cheng hung the head of the sixth ancestor of Great Yin on a tall, massive tree, making it look extremely conspicuous. Following this, Chu Fan's troops began traveling toward the Fengyin dynasty again. This minor interlude did not draw Chu Fan's attention. Just a few days after Chu Fan and the others left, the matter here was discovered by several major imperial dynasties. The Great Yin dynasty was the first to discover the situation here, as they often paid attention to the movements of their old ancestor. Murong Li flew into a great rage upon learning this news, instantly causing the traveling Murong imperial family troops to dare not approach Murong Li. As for the other imperial dynasties, after receiving this news, they adopted a wait-and-see attitude, observing the conflict between the Prince of Jinbei's estate and the Great Yin imperial family. However, in a place unknown to everyone, Yu Fei, leading the Yu family army, had already quietly launched an attack on the Great Yin dynasty. In the western border of Great Yin, a troop was rapidly advancing. The number of people in this troop had reached over 100,000. This troop was precisely the Yu family army led by Yu Fei. Their goal at this time was to capture the entire western border in the shortest possible time. Marshal, ahead is Xi'an City. The garrison commander here is a Grotto Heaven Realm cultivator, but there are 70,000 troops within the city. A killer from Innate of Luo also came before Yu Fei and reported the situation within the city ahead. Chapter 86. Attacking the western border, Yu Fei, whose army acted with utmost speed, led his troops to Jinchi City. After informing Yu Fei about the city before him, the Innate of Luo instantly disappeared from the spot. At this moment, the Innate of Luo was solely focused on gathering intelligence. They did not intend to interfere in this great battle. After all, Yu Fei was one of the most famous marshals in China's history, spanning thousands of years. Yang Zixing, I grant you 50,000 troops. You have 1 hour to break into Xian City. After hearing the report from the Innate of Luo, Yu Fei immediately gave his order to Yang Zixing. Yu Fei did not plan to use strategy to capture Xian City. Instead, he intended to sweep through it directly. Your subordinate accepts the command. Yang Zixing was extremely excited upon hearing Yu Fei's order. He then grabbed the large black spear in his hand and strode out. Moments later, Yang Zixing quickly led his army straight towards Xian City. He had no intention of concealing the army behind him, leading the massive force directly to crush Xian City. The movement of the army led by Yang Zixing was massive, immediately drawing the attention of Xian City as soon as they arrived outside the city gates. The general defending Xian City naturally noticed Yang Zixing, watching him below with a solemn expression. Who goes there? What is your purpose for coming to my Xian City at this time? The defending general of Xian City, a cultivator of the Grotto Heaven Realm, asked Yang Zixing below with a grave look, while a bad premonition arose in his heart. Yang Zixing of the Prince of Jinbei's estate is here today to take Xian City. Yang Zixing looked excitedly at the general of the Grotto Heaven Realm on the city wall, brazenly declaring his intentions without reservation. Is the Prince of Jinbei's estate planning to start a war with my great Yin dynasty? The Xian City general, hearing this news, finally let go of his anxiety, then threatened Yang Zixing. Ha! We originally intended to take the entirety of Great Yin this time. Upon hearing his words, Yang Zixing burst into laughter as if he had heard something ridiculous. Then, disregarding everything, he charged toward the city gate, carrying his large spear. Fire the arrows! The Xian City general saw this, a hint of disdain appearing in his eyes, and immediately gave the order to the soldiers beside him. Instantly, countless arrows rained down toward Yang Zixing. Seeing this, Yang Zixing did not attempt to block them, but continued riding his warhorse and charging toward the gates of Xian City. Just as the arrows were about to land on Yang Zixing, a completely black light emanated from him, blocking all the arrows outside. At that moment, Yang Zixing arrived at the gates of Xian City. He quickly raised a large black spear in his hand, and with a single thrust, tore a huge gap in Xian City's gate. Simultaneously, the moment his spear struck, the entire wall of Xian City trembled violently. It was as if even the city wall of Xian City could not withstand the power of that single spear strike. The defending general of Xian City showed an expression of disbelief upon witnessing this scene. He had not expected this young general before him to possess such strength, managing to breach the gates of Xian City the instant they clashed. This was the importance of powerful cultivators participating in a great battle. Their strength far surpassed that of ordinary soldiers. A powerhouse of the Divine Marquis realm could easily escape from an army of 100,000. If that powerhouse of the Spirit Roaming realm were replaced by a powerhouse of the Dharma Aspect realm, then he could slaughter 100,000 troops. The current Yang Zixing was in existence at the late Dharma Aspect stage, and the city gate truly could not withstand a single blow from him. After Yang Zixing breached the gates of Xian City, the Yu family army immediately followed, riding their warhorses in Yang Zixing's footsteps into Xian City. Xian City then faced endless slaughter. In less than an hour, Yang Zixing had already led his army and captured Xian City. The defending general of the Grotto Heaven Realm in Xian City fell at Yang Zixing's hands without even managing to withstand a single move. Yu Fei, who received the news from the rear, was not overly surprised. Instead, he led the rest of the army into Xian City. After resting for only a few hours in Xian City, Yu Fei once again led his troops toward Shilong City. This time, the vanguard was still led by Yang Zixing. In just a few hours, Yang Zixing breached another city. Behind them, the great army of the Prince of Jinbei continuously brought these cities under the influence of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. In just a few days, the army led by Yu Fei captured dozens of cities in the western region. 4 or 5 days passed in a flash. Apart from Jinchi City, all cities in the entire western region had fallen into the hands of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. At this moment, Yu Fei also led the Yu family army outside Jinchi City. Jinchi City was one of the most crucial cities in the entire western region. Jinshi City's army numbered over 150,000. At this time, the defending general of the city had been replaced by another prince from the Great Yin imperial family, and beside him were several powerhouses of the spirit roaming realm. I never expected the Prince of Jinbei's estate would choose to attack my Great Yin dynasty during the Heavenly Prodigy battle. It seems the Prince of Jinbei's estate intends to use this opportunity to completely take down my Great Yin dynasty. Murongbu looked at Yu Fei and the Yu family army, who had already appeared outside Jinshi City, a look of shock appearing in his eyes. He then slowly spoke to the cultivators of the Shunyu realm beside him. Of course, Murongbu had already guessed the intentions of the Prince of Jinbei's estate by this point. Murongbu was the prince of the Great Yin imperial family sent by the Great Yin dynasty to guard the Western Jin region. His cultivation had reached the Grotto Heaven realm, making him a formidable prince within the Great Yin imperial family. Indeed, the Prince of Jinbei's estate plans to use Chu Fan to draw the attention of the world, and only then launch an attack on my Great Yin dynasty. Furthermore, they nearly took the entire Western region in such a short time. It seems the person leading the army this time is not simple. An old man of the Shunyu realm beside Murongbu slowly opened his eyes, looked down at Yu Fei, and spoke leisurely. He also had not expected the Prince of Jinbei's estate to take advantage of the Heavenly Prodigy battle to start a war with the Great Yin dynasty. One must know that at this time, all the world's attention was focused on the Fengyan dynasty. More importantly, news of the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, Chu Fan, setting off for the Fengyan dynasty had spread throughout the world. At this moment, everyone's focus was not only on the Fengyan dynasty, but even more so on Chu Fan. This ensured that no one would pay attention to what was happening in the Great Yin dynasty. This was also why Yu Fei capturing so many cities in the western region had not attracted the attention of others. Even Murongbu and the others only realized what was happening when Yu Fei's massive army arrived outside Jinshi City. Chapter 87 Yu Fei's Plan. Provoking Yu Yun of Jinshi City. We are probably facing the mysterious army that the Prince of Jinbei's estate has hidden for many years. Another cultivator of the spirit roaming realm also slowly stood up and said, ever since the appearance of the White Horse Volunteers, everyone had speculated that the Prince of Jinbei's estate was hiding many mysterious armies. The current Great Yin imperial dynasty, naturally, also speculated like outsiders, believing that the Prince of Jinbei's estate had many mysterious armies hidden for a long time. No matter what, today, we must defend Jinshi City. Otherwise, the entire western region will fall into the hands of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Murongbu's guess was similar to the guesses of these cultivators of the spirit roaming realm, but now he was determined to defend Jinshi City. If Jinshi City were to fall now, then the entire western region would truly fall into the hands of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. And at that time, the power of the Prince of Jinbei's estate would become unprecedentedly strong. It would be difficult for their Great Yin imperial dynasty to defeat the Prince of Jinbei's estate. It's still very easy for us to defend Jinshi City. The army below is only 100,000 strong, not to mention that we old fellows are here. An old man of the spirit roaming realm said confidently after hearing Murongbu's words. He believed that with their presence, they could easily defend Jinshi City, and moreover, they could also seek support from the Great Yin imperial family. Although Murongbu felt a little uneasy, he still believed in these spirit roaming realm powerhouses in front of him. Marshal, ahead is Jinshi City, the last city in the western region. Jinshi City has a total of 150,000 troops, and it is guarded by a prince of the Grotto Heaven realm from the Great Yin imperial family, with several spirit roaming realm masters by his side. At the same time, the net of Luo below also informed Yu Fei of the news. Murongbu had no idea that all their information had been thoroughly investigated by the net of Luo. After listening to the net of Luo's report, Yu Fei waved his hand, dismissing the net of Luo, and then he slowly opened the map of Jinshi City's soldier defenses that the net of Luo had brought. Looking at the defenses of Jinshi City on the map, Yu Fei began to examine them carefully. At the same time, his fingers kept tapping on the defense map of Jinshi City. Clearly, he was thinking about how to attack Jinshi City at this moment. After a while, Yu Fei's fingers slowly landed on the west gate of Jinshi City. In the eyes of others, this might be the most difficult place to attack, but in Yu Fei's view, it was the best point of attack. Having made his decision, Yu Fei immediately summoned Yang Zixing and others to his side. Yang Zixing and Yu Yin entered the camp, looking at Yu Fei with excitement. The net of Luo has just sent the defense map of Jinshi City to this marshal, and this marshal also has a plan to attack Jinshi City. Yang Zixing, heed my order. Yu Fei scanned Yang Zixing and the others in front of him and slowly said, a hint of an imperceptible smile in his eyes. Your subordinate general is here. When Yang Zixing heard Yu Fei call his name, he excitedly stepped forward and spoke to Yu Fei, his body and eyes radiating intense battle intent. The others looked at Yang Zixing with envy. We don't have much time for this surprise attack, so later you will lead 20,000 troops to the west gate of Jinshi City. When we officially attack the north gate of Jinshi City, you will launch a direct surprise attack. This marshal hopes you will take the west gate of Jinshi City in the fastest possible time. Yu Fei slowly gave the order, looking at the excited Yang Zixing. Your subordinate general accepts the order. Yang Zixing took the token from Yu Fei's hand and left the main tent. At this moment, he needed to go and prepare. Yu Yun, heed my order. Later, I need you to be this marshal's vanguard and go directly to the north gate to provoke the generals of Jinshi City. Anyone who comes out to fight shall be slain. After glancing at the departing Yang Zixing, Yu Fei turned his gaze to Yu Yun and slowly gave the order. Your subordinate general accepts the order. Yu Yun excitedly accepted the order, and then he also took the token and left the main tent. Subsequently, Yu Fei led the other generals in the camp to the north gate of Jinshi City. At this time, Yu Yun, who had received the order, had already appeared at the north gate of Jinshi City and began to provoke the generals of Jinshi City. Is there anyone in Jinshi City who dares to fight with this general? If so, come out quickly, or are the people in Jinshi City all cowards who dare not come out to fight me? At this moment, Yu Yun, holding a pair of silver hammers, looked at Murongbu above Jinshi City and slowly spoke, his eyes filled with provocation. Your Highness, let me go out and fight. On the north gate wall of Jinshi City, a divine power realm general, seeing that Yu Yun below was just a child, his eyes were filled with rage, as if he wanted to tear Yu Yun into 1,000 pieces. Go! Murongbu frowned when he heard the divine power realm general's words, but seeing the anger in the general's eyes, he still waved his hand, agreeing to the general's request. Having received Murongbu's order, the general excitedly grabbed his broadsword and leaped down for the city wall. At this moment, he wished he could quickly kill Yu Yun in front of him to display his might. Is Jinshi City looking down on this young master, sending only a small divine power realm general to fight me? Yu Yun looked at the divine power realm general of Jinshi City who appeared before him, a hint of disdain in his eyes. He did not expect Jinshi City to underestimate him so much, sending only a cultivator of the divine power realm. Brat, you're asking for death. The divine power realm general of Jinshi City, who had just leaped down, was instantly enraged upon hearing Yu Yun's words, so he wielded his broadsword and furiously slashed towards Yu Yun. Seeing this, Yu Yun showed no fear, not even activating his cultivation. He swung the silver hammer in his hand, and with one strike, he sent the broadsword in the Jinshi City general's hand flying. Then, he swung the silver hammer again, completely smashing the Jinshi City general in front of him with one blow. Not even a corpse was left behind. Can someone who can fight come out? I can crush someone like this with a flick of my hand. After dealing with the Jinshi City general in front of him, Yu Yun continued to mock those on the Jinshi City wall. At this moment, the eager expressions of the divine power realm generals on the Jinshi City wall instantly vanished. They now looked at Yu Yun below with disbelief. They had not expected this young fellow to possess such strength. Are you afraid of this young master now? If so, then go home and drink milk. Seeing no reaction from the Jinshi City wall, Yu Yun continued to speak, and after speaking, he swaggered and forcefully threw the weapon of the recently fallen general onto the Jinshi City wall, the powerful force directly embedding the broadsword into the Jinshi City wall. Chapter 88. Yu Yun displays his power, and Murongbu is helpless. The generals on Jinshi City were also extremely furious upon hearing Yu Yun's words, but those divine power realm generals naturally knew they would not be a match for the young general below, so no matter how angry they were, they dared not leave the city to fight him. At this moment, even Murongbu's face was filled with anger, and he stared fiercely at Yu Yun below. Your Highness, your subordinate general requests permission to fight. Just then, a black armored general could no longer tolerate Yu Yun's arrogant attitude below. He stepped forward and half knelt before Murongbu. His eyes were filled with determined fury. At that moment, he looked as if he wanted to tear Yu Yun below into shreds. You must kill this person. Murongbu nodded upon seeing the black armored general before him, and, simultaneously, the rage in his eyes was released. After all, the cultivation of this black armored general before him had already reached the Grotto Heaven realm. He refused to believe that the young general outside could withstand his great general of the Grotto Heaven realm. Please rest assured, Your Highness. Your subordinate will definitely return with his head. The black armored general grinned upon hearing Murongbu's words. Then, carrying a dark long spear in his hand, he leaped down from the city wall. At the same time, he completely erupted the aura belonging to the Grotto Heaven realm from his body. At that moment, he looked like a god of war descending from the sky. With every step he took, dust rose from the ground. His powerful aura instantly enveloped the entire area outside the gates of Jinshi City. Finally, a worthy opponent has arrived, but I wonder if you can withstand one strike from this young master's hammer. Yu Yun's eyes lit up when he saw the black-armored general before him. Then, carrying the silver hammer in his hand, he galloped on his warhorse toward the black-armored general. The silver hammer in his hand appeared dazzling under the sunlight. At the same time, Yu Yun did not release his cultivation at this moment. Clearly, he intended to test the black-armored general before him using only his physical body strength. "Brat, how dare you be so presumptuous in front of me?" The black-armored general burst into laughter upon hearing Yu Yun's words. Simultaneously, the dark long spear in his hand sliced through the sky like a sharp blade, striking toward Yu Yun. His speed was so fast that it was difficult for the naked eye to track. Only a black shadow could be seen moving toward Yu Yun outside the city gates. Yu Yun, who was on the warhorse, instantly became amused when he saw this. He leaped up from his warhorse, then fiercely executed a splitting Mount Hua move, holding the silver hammer in one hand. Instantly, a powerful force slowly pressed down from the sky. The next second, the silver hammer in Yu Yun's hand collided with the dark long spear held by the black-armored general. The moment of impact produced a piercing sound of clashing weapons in the air. At the same time, when the black-armored general felt the force of Yu Yun's strike, he was completely hammered into the ground by the blow. Both of his feet were directly embedded in the sand before him. At that moment, he still maintained the posture of holding the long spear with both hands, but streaks of fresh blood appeared at the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were bloodshot. His hands holding the long spear were trembling incessantly. "Ew, how could you be so strong?" The black-armored general no longer held his initial arrogant demeanor. Instead, he looked at Yu Yun before him with a face full of disbelief. He had never expected that he, a mighty expert of the Grotto Heaven realm, would be beaten so badly by a mere child. He had already erupted all his strength just to withstand that one hammer blow. Yet even so, he felt that his internal organs had shifted out of place. "You're not bad, fellow. You actually managed to block half a fraction of this young master's strength." Yu Yun did not answer the black-armored general's words. Instead, he gazed leisurely at the black-armored general, then slowly approached him, holding the two silver hammers in his hands. Then, amidst the crowd's exclamations, he sent the black-armored general to the underworld with a single hammer strike. Having done all this, he kicked the black-armored general's body toward the base of the city wall. At the same time, he held the black-armored general's dark long spear in his hand. After casually twirling the long spear, Yu Yun forcefully plunged it into the wall of Jinshi City once more. Can someone come out who can truly satisfy this young master? Or are all of you in Jinshi City just trash? After dealing with the black-armored general, Yu Yun once again arrogantly mocked Murongbu and the others on the Jinshi City wall. Simultaneously, the two great silver hammers in his hands dragged deep marks across the ground. At this moment, Murongbu on the city wall also recovered his senses after hearing Yu Yun's words. When they looked at Yu Yun, their eyes were filled with horror. They had not expected that this child, merely a teenager below, possessed such terrifying strength. Naturally, they did not consider the extent of Yu Yun's true power, but rather assumed Yu Yun must possess innate divine power. After all, Yu Yun had not yet displayed his true strength. What he showed was merely the power of immense physical might. Does anyone else dare to fight this young general? Murongbu gritted his teeth as he looked at the arrogant Yu Yun below. Only then did he slowly turn his gaze toward the dozens of generals beside him. The strength of these generals was all above the divine power realm, and there were several generals who had reached the Grotto Heaven realm. However, when these generals saw Murongbu's gaze, they all lowered their heads, because if a black-armored general who was also in the Grotto Heaven realm had fallen so easily into the hands of the young general outside, the result of their fighting would not be much better than the black-armored generals just now. Are all of you in Jinshi City spineless cowards? You don't even have the courage to fight this young master. Just when Murongbu didn't know what to do, Yu Yun's arrogant voice once again reached the city wall. At the same time, Yu Yun brazenly sat directly on the ground. Even more outrageously, he took roasted meat from a soldier behind him and began eating, completely disregarding the feelings of the people on the city wall. "Your Highness, your subordinate generals, we three request permission to fight." Seeing the arrogant Yu Yun below, the generals on the Jinshi City wall could no longer hold back. Three generals, all of the Grotto Heaven realm, stepped forward simultaneously and spoke to Murongbu. At this moment, their eyes were filled with fury. Although Yu Yun had just defeated the black-armored general, who was also of the Grotto Heaven realm, they were now fighting together as three, so the trio was not overly afraid of Yu Yun. Very well. Then this king wishes the three generals success in capturing the young general below. Murongbu hesitated slightly when he saw the three step forward. After all, sending out three Grotto Heaven realm generals to deal with a mere youngster would surely have a significant negative impact on his reputation if the news spread. But now, it seemed there were not many other options, so he immediately agreed to the 3 Grotto Heaven Realm generals before him. Chapter 89, The Terrifying Yu Yun, Murongbu's Resoluteness. After hearing Murongbu's words, the 3 generals' eyes all showed a confident look. Then, the 3 generals of Jinshi City leaped down from the city wall, and at the same time, 3 weapons appeared in their hands. One of them held a long spear, but the tip of the long spear had a groove, which looked very strange. The other person's weapon was a long whip made of golden metal, giving people a very heavy feeling. As for the third person's weapon, it was a silver shining great saber, somewhat similar to the great saber in the hand of the one who had just attacked. I didn't expect that your Jinshi City isn't full of cowards, but I wonder if the 3 of you can withstand this general's one hammer. Yu Yun's eyes lit up when he saw the 3 Grotto Heaven Realm generals of Jinshi City appear before him. He instantly felt that the roasted meat in his hand was no longer appetizing, so he directly threw it to the soldiers behind him. Only after finishing all this did he slowly lift the silver hammer from the ground, then looked at the 3 generals of Jinshi City in front of him with excitement. Little brat, don't be so presumptuous just because you have some divine power. This is Jinshi City after all. The Jinshi City general, holding the long whip, slowly stepped forward and spoke to Yu Yun, but his eyes were filled with intense solemnity. Only when truly facing Yu Yun did he realize the terrifying qi emanating from Yu Yun. What's so great about Jinshi City? My father is the Grand Marshal this time. After hearing the general's words, Yu Yun spoke with disdain. His words also revealed the information that he was the Grand Marshal's son. Of course, all of this was Yu Fei's instruction, because only in this way could Murongbu on the city wall focus all his attention on him. And indeed, just as Yu Fei had thought, Murongbu on the city wall immediately fixed his gaze on Yu Yun after hearing his words. Previously, he might have only noticed that this young general had natural divine power and wanted these few people to kill Yu Yun. But now, his eyes were filled with fervor, because if the immortal master in front of him was the son of the Grand Marshal of this army, then as long as he captured the person in front of him, he could threaten the advance of the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. So, upon hearing this news, Murongbu also began to ponder how to capture this young general. So, it's a Grand Marshal's son. This general thought you had something truly worth being proud of. The Jinshi City general holding the long spear was also somewhat surprised after hearing Yu Yun's words, but at this moment, the long spear in his hand began to tremble, as if it feared Yu Yun opposite him. By the time they reacted, Yu Yun had already rushed over with his silver hammer. Yu Yun was a very warlike person. It was only because his father told him to convey this message. Otherwise, he would have directly started fighting when the 3 came down. Yu Yun's silver hammer directly smashed down towards the 3. The Jinshi City general holding the long spear immediately used his long spear to block Yu Yun's silver hammer. However, at this moment, he overestimated his own strength and underestimated Yu Yun's strength. He was sent flying hundreds of feet away by that powerful force. After striking one hammer, Yu Yun immediately struck 2 more hammers at the other 2, and a powerful force directly surged towards them. With the previous example, the 2 Jinshi City generals did not choose to block the 2 hammers. Instead, they quickly used their movement techniques to dodge. The next second, Yu Yun's silver hammer heavily smashed into the ground, instantly creating 2 deep pits in the earth. Looking at the 2 large pits on the ground, the 2 Jinshi City generals who had just dodged simultaneously gasped. They had initially thought Yu Yun's strength was very powerful, but they hadn't expected that even a casual strike from Yu Yun would possess such power. At this moment, the Jinshi City general holding the long spear, who had just been sent flying by a single hammer, slowly came to their side. However, it could be seen that a trace of blood was already hanging from his lips. He had not taken that previous blow so easily. We cannot clash head-on with this little brat. Otherwise, the 3 of us will not be a match for him. Now, we need to constantly dodge while looking for an opportunity. The Jinshi City general, holding the great saber, slowly said to the other 2. The other 2 generals nodded in agreement after hearing his words. At this moment, they naturally also saw Yu Yun's true, formidable power. However, before they could discuss a countermeasure, Yu Yun's silver hammer once again attacked them, and a powerful force was directly released from Yu Yun's body. The 3 of them also dodged when they felt the terrifying power from Yu Yun. But as they were about to dodge, they found that their bodies were unable to move, as if they were fixed in place by some power. Thus, the 3 watched with horrified eyes as the silver hammer smashed towards them. Finally, in the moment of crisis, the 3 broke free from their restraints and used their weapons to block Yu Yun's silver hammer. The next second, the weapons in their hands collided with Yu Yun's silver hammer. A sound echoed across the entire battlefield, and then the 3 felt a strong qi coming from their hands. The next second, The 3 Grotto Heaven Realm generals of Jinshi City flew out like kites with broken strings, and their weapons also fell to the ground. Yu Yin directly seized this opportunity to catch the 3 falling weapons, then quickly shot the 3 weapons out. These 3 weapons, without missing, directly pierced their owners and firmly nailed them to the city wall of Jinshi City. This sudden scene caught even Murongbu off guard. He stared blankly at Yu Yin below. He hadn't expected that 3 Grotto Heaven Realm generals from his side would fall so easily into the hands of a little brat. More importantly, these 3 Grotto Heaven Realm generals had fallen into the hands of a little brat even when they were working together. This person's strength is probably no weaker than an ordinary cultivator of the spirit roaming realm. An old man beside Murongbu slowly spoke at this moment, his eyes filled with complex emotions as he looked at Yu Yin below. Cultivators below the spirit roaming realm have no chance of winning against him in a fight. Another old man also took over the first old man's words, and his eyes also showed a trace of battle intent and killing intent. It seems we can only ask the immortal masters to act. This young general below must be captured. Only then can we negotiate with this army. Murongbu also reacted after hearing the 2 men's words, then looked at Yu Yin below with determined eyes. Chapter 90. The West Gate breaks down, the army moves. Several spirit roaming realm experts nodded after hearing Murongbu's words. After all, the best method now was to capture this young general in front of them. Only then could they stop the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate from advancing further. News from Yu Yin naturally reached Yu Fei, who smiled faintly upon learning of his son's bravery. At this moment, his gaze turned towards the West Gate, because to achieve a quick victory in this great battle, they had to observe the fighting there. As for the generals around Yu Fei, their eyes gleamed with excitement as they watched Yu Yin fighting fiercely in front. They wished they could take Yu Yin's place. After all, such an opportunity to display power in front of the 3 armies was rare. Meanwhile, Yang Zixing led 2,000 Yu family army soldiers to the outside of the West Gate of Jinshi City. At the West Gate of Jinshi City, the defending general looked distracted, having heard the commotion from the North Gate. Furthermore, his lord had transferred most of the troops here to support the North Gate. So this general naturally knew that the real battle was at the North Gate, and he had little role to play here. As a general, he naturally hoped to fight on the battlefield, and without a great battle, he appeared distracted. Seeing their general looking distracted, the soldiers on the city wall naturally lacked spirit. They stood sickly on the city wall. Indeed, this is our best time to attack. Yang Zixing saw the state of the soldiers on the Jinshi City wall from a distance, and a look of excitement appeared on his face. Now, if they took Jinshi City, they could take the entire western border. By then, the Prince of Jinbei's estate would control both the northern and western borders. Generals above the divine ability realm, charge with this general. We need to take the west gate of Jinshi City as quickly as possible. Yang Zixing glanced at the soldiers on the city wall of Jinshi City, then slowly looked at the 2,000 Yu family army soldiers beside him and ordered. As his words fell, hundreds of armored generals emerged from the Yu family army. Yang Zixing glanced at these hundreds of generals, then charged out with his long spear. He didn't even ride his warhorse, appearing like a blur, constantly darting forward outside the west gate of the city. The hundreds of Yu family army generals behind him also followed his steps, swiftly charging towards the west gate of Jinshi City. Yang Zixing's actions did not attract the attention of the soldiers on the Jinshi City wall until he appeared at the Jinshi City gate. Only then did these soldiers discover Yang Zixing's presence. Enemy attack. A soldier who saw Yang Zixing shouted loudly at the surrounding soldiers, simultaneously aiming his bow and arrow at Yang Zixing below. Hearing the soldier's words, the previously distracted defending general instantly stood up, his gaze following the direction of the soldier's arrow towards Yang Zixing at the city gate below. At this moment, Yang Zixing had no intention of paying attention to them. He quickly raised his long spear, and with a single thrust, instantly pierced through the Jinshi City gate in front of him. This powerful sound naturally attracted the attention of the soldiers inside the west gate of Jinshi City. Seeing the gate shattered, they all picked up their weapons and charged towards Yang Zixing at the gate. At this moment, a cruel smile appeared at the corner of Yang Zixing's mouth. Then, he carried his long spear and charged directly in. Each time he swung his long spear, at least dozens of soldiers fell. As he was killing with fervor, the hundreds of Yu family army soldiers above the divine power realm also arrived beside Yang Zixing, then followed him, continuously slaughtering the nearby soldiers. In just a moment, thousands of soldiers' bodies were left at the gate, and, simultaneously, the west gate of Jinshi City was successfully captured by them. At this time, the 2,000 Yu family army soldiers hidden outside also charged towards the west gate of Jinshi City. It's over. Everything is over. Seeing this scene, the defending general of Jinshi City showed a bitter smile in his eyes. He had not expected his steadfast west gate to be so easily broken by the enemy army. At this moment, this defending general also understood why the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate had so easily captured the other cities in the western border. "General, we are willing to surrender. May we be spared our lives." Seeing Yang Zixing, who was like a devil slaughtering his soldiers, the defending general of Jinshi City shouted at him. His voice pierced through the soldiers present and quickly reached Yang Zixing's ears. After hearing this voice, Yang Zixing looked at the defending general on the city wall with interest. "Those who surrender, lay down your weapons. Those who lay down their weapons shall be spared death. All who hold weapons shall be killed." Yang Zixing glanced at the defending general and then shouted. His voice quickly spread throughout the entire West Gate. All the soldiers at the West Gate heard his voice. The soldiers who heard his voice looked left and right, wanting to see if the soldiers around them had laid down their weapons. "Those who don't want to die, lay down your weapons." The defending general of Jinshi City naturally knew that if they continued to fight the army in front of them, they would certainly not escape death. So, he took the lead in throwing his weapon on the ground and said. Other soldiers, seeing their general had already laid down his weapon, also laid down their weapons. As these soldiers laid down their weapons, the entire West Gate became so quiet that only the sound of their weapons falling to the ground could be heard. "You leave 5,000 troops here to guard them. Any who make a move shall be executed without mercy." Watching the soldiers in front lay down their weapons, Yang Zixing instructed a Grotto Heaven Realm Yu family army general beside him. Then, he led the remaining Yu family army towards the North Gate. Just as Yang Zixing finished the battle at the West Gate, Yu Fei on the other side slowly stood up from his seat, looked at the people in front of him, and said, "The battle at the West Gate should be over. The army will press forward directly." After Yu Fei's words ended, all the generals excitedly looked towards Yu Yun's position in front. At this time, Yu Yun's opponent was a spirit roaming realm expert, but even he could only retreat steadily when facing Yu Yun. Murongbu and others on the city wall naturally saw this scene. They had not expected that even sending out a spirit roaming realm expert would be helpless against this young general below. "Prince, the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate has moved." Just as Murongbu was agitated, a Grotto Heaven Realm general beside him suddenly exclaimed in surprise. Chapter 91 Yang Zixing arrives, Murongbu's panic. As his voice fell, Murongbu also turned his gaze towards the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate outside the city. Sure enough, the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate outside was densely packed, heading towards Jinshi City. Even several miles away, Murongbu could feel a terrifying aura emanating from the Yu family army. Does the Prince of Jinbei's estate really have such a formidable army? Seeing the imposing Yu family army before him, an expression of disbelief appeared on Murongbu's face. He didn't believe the Prince of Jinbei's estate could field so many powerful troops like the Yu family army. After all, even the great Yan Imperial Dynasty would struggle to find an army that could rival such a terrifying and powerful force. But what he didn't know was that Chu Fan of the Prince of Jinbei's estate had a cheat. Otherwise, how could such a formidable army have appeared? "All troops, prepare for battle." Murongbu, recovering from his shock, began to prepare. Although the army below was terrifying, their most important task now was to defend Jinshi City. Otherwise, it wouldn't just be a simple matter of losing Jinshi City. Murongbu would also become a soul under the blade. Following his command, the troops on the city wall all began to seriously regard the Yu family army below. At the same time, tens of thousands of archers also looked gravely at the Yu family army below. The time should be right. Below, Yu Fei led the Yu family army slowly approaching Jinshi City, but his gaze was constantly fixed in another direction. That was the West City Gate, where Yang Zixing was leading his troops to attack. No sooner had Yu Fei's voice fallen than Murongbu, above the North City Gate, suddenly heard a clamor from behind, mixed with some shouts of killing. What's going on? Murongbu didn't know why, but he felt an ominous premonition in his heart. So, he turned to a cultivator of the spirit roaming realm beside him and asked, "An army has appeared within the city and is now charging towards us. I'm afraid all of this was within the calculations of the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate." At this moment, a complex and shocked expression appeared on the face of the old man of the spirit roaming realm beside him. As a cultivator of the spirit roaming realm, he naturally sensed the presence of that army within the city. Just now, all his attention had been on the Yu family army outside, so he hadn't noticed the army inside the city. It wasn't until commotion erupted within the city that he became aware of the movements of this army. Impossible! How could there be an enemy army within my Jinshi City? Although he had already guessed the outcome, Murongbu still spoke to the cultivator of the spirit roaming realm before him with a look of disbelief. At this moment, Murongbu's eyes still held a glimmer of hope. He hoped that the old man of the spirit roaming realm before him had sensed incorrectly. My lord, now is not the time to say such things. An army has indeed appeared within the city. If we don't take action soon, perhaps the entire Jinshi city will truly fall. The cultivator of the spirit roaming realm also felt somewhat helpless at this moment, so he reminded Murong Bu. He had already roughly guessed Yu Fei's intentions. Perhaps the main reason that young general provoked their Jinshi city just now was to draw their attention, making everyone's gaze focus here. In fact, Murong Bu could also guess the thoughts of this cultivator of the spirit roaming realm, but he just didn't quite believe it at the moment. I asked the enshrined elder to stop this army. As long as this army is annihilated within the city, we will have hope. At this moment, Murong Bu had completely reacted, so he spoke to the old man of the spirit roaming realm beside him. My lord, it's already too late. Just as the old man of the spirit roaming realm was about to act, he sensed something and stopped in place, looking at Murong Bu with a complex expression as he replied. Hearing his words, an expression of doubt appeared on Murong Bu's face, but in the next second, he understood the old man's meaning. A deafening roar was heard, and then the entire North City wall seemed to tremble. The next second, Murong Bu saw the seemingly indestructible North City gate being opened. Standing at the North City gate was a youthful man holding a black long spear, his armor stained with much blood. This man was Yang Zixing. After dealing with the soldiers at the West City gate, he immediately headed towards the North City gate. In less than half an hour, he had reached the North City gate. At the same time, he quickly dealt with the surrounding soldiers and directly approached the North City gate. Now, he had even directly opened the North City gate. Yang Zixing seemed to have also felt Murong Bu's gaze at that moment, so he slowly raised his head and looked fiercely at Murong Bu. Suddenly, he grinned, and Murong Bu was instantly scared out of his wits. Seventh Enshrined Elder. To what extent has this person's cultivation reached? After a while, Murong Bu finally came back to his senses and asked the old man of the spirit roaming realm beside him. I cannot discern this person's cultivation, but his aura has at least reached the spirit roaming realm. It seems the prince of Jinbei's estate has been hiding very deeply all these years. Upon hearing Murong Bu's words, the seventh enshrined elder's eyes instantly became grave. Although he couldn't discern Yang Zixing's cultivation at this moment, he felt a terrifying pressure from Yang Zixing. From this, it could be seen that Yang Zixing's strength far exceeded the Grotto Heaven realm. He was at least on the same level as him. Murong Bu looked incredulous after hearing this. He hadn't expected this youthful man holding a black long spear to have reached the spirit roaming realm. Everyone stop this man. Do not let the army of the prince of Jinbei's estate enter Jinshi city. However, no matter how unbelievable it was at this moment, the most important thing was to prevent the army of the prince of Jinbei's estate from entering Jinshi city. Otherwise, Jinshi city would be lost. Hearing Murong Bu's words, all the troops charged towards the North City gate. They naturally understood the importance of the North City gate at this moment. Yang Zixing, after a hearty laugh, directly wielded his long spear and began to slaughter the soldiers approaching him. Within dozens of meters around him, in just a moment, hundreds of corpses piled up. Yu Yun, Wang Gui, you two go support Zixing. Yu Fei, seeing the scene from afar, immediately ordered Yu Yun and Wang Gui beside him. Yu Yun's cultivation had already reached the Dharma aspect realm, so he naturally wielded a pair of silver hammers and swiftly attacked in Yang Zixing's direction. As for Wang Gui, his cultivation had already reached the spirit roaming realm, so his speed was only slightly slower than Yu Yun's. In just a few breaths, he also arrived at the North City gate. What followed was a slaughter feast for the three of them. Chapter 92, Chun Qingji's conquest of the Western Territory and advance into the Eastern Territory. At this moment, Yu Yun and the other two no longer concealed their true cultivation. Their auras prevented the surrounding soldiers from approaching them. In an instant, the entire city gate was completely overrun. As for Yu Fei, who was leading the Yu family army from behind, he was also rushing towards the North City gate. At this time, he had a confident expression, clearly indicating that Jinshi city was already within his grasp. Your Highness, please flee quickly. If we don't, we won't have a chance. Upon sensing the auras of Yu Yun and the other two, the seventh enshrined one's heart sank to rock bottom. He had not expected that two of them were Dharma aspect realm cultivators. Had he known from the start that Yang Zixing and Yu Yun's cultivation had reached the Dharma aspect realm, he would have already fled by now. The other spirit roaming realm experts all showed expressions of agreement after hearing the seventh enshrined one's words. Clearly, they too knew that they had no chance of victory in this great battle. Protect this king and retreat. Murong Bu naturally did not hesitate, immediately speaking to the spirit roaming realm experts beside him. He himself did not hesitate at all and immediately galloped in another direction. The other several spirit roaming experts also followed Murong Bu's footsteps, galloping towards the Great Yin Imperial family's direction. Yang Zixing, don't let this person escape. Yu Fei below naturally saw this scene, so he loudly called out to Yang Zixing. Yang Zixing, who was originally slaughtering soldiers, heard Yu Fei's words and instantly turned his gaze towards the direction Murong Bu was fleeing. Then, he transformed into a streak of light, chasing after Murong Bu. Below, Yin also stopped his actions at this moment, holding his silver hammer and transforming into a streak of light, following Yang Zixing's footsteps. The speed of the two had already far surpassed that of ordinary spirit roaming realm experts. In just a few breaths, the two had already seen Murong Bu, who was fleeing. Then, Yang Zixing directly threw the long spear in his hand. The black long spear in his hand, like a sharp blade, directly cut through the sky and struck towards Murong Bu. Feeling a fatal threat, Murong Bu's fleeing footsteps involuntarily stopped. Then, he quickly dodged to the side. Yang Zixing's long spear directly pierced through his arm, instantly severing his entire arm. The power of the long spear still remained, heavily embedding itself into the ground in front of Murong Bu. At this moment, the several enshrined ones who were fleeing also stopped, because they knew that in front of two Dharma aspect realm experts, no matter how they fled, they would not be able to escape. At the same time, an unprecedented aura erupted from these several enshrined ones. Clearly, at this moment, they intended to burn their lifespans to fight Yu Yun and the other. Yu Yun, excited, directly charged in with his silver hammer. The silver hammer in his hand, like a meteor, directly collided with the Great Yin Imperial family enshrined one in front of him. The terrifying force directly sent these several enshrined ones of the Great Yin Imperial family flying. Then, Yu Yun directly held his silver hammer and charged at the several enshrined ones of the Great Yin Imperial family. These several enshrined ones of the Great Yin Imperial family didn't even have a chance to retaliate in front of him. As for Yang Zixing on the other side, he slowly walked towards Murong Bu. I didn't expect the prince of the Great Yin Imperial family to be such a coward, abandoning Jinshi City and fleeing alone. Yang Zixing came before Murong Bu and slowly spoke. Looking at Murong Bu in front of him, Yang Zixing's eyes were filled with disdain and contempt. General, can you spare my life? As long as you spare my life, this king will satisfy whatever the general desires. After hearing Yang Zixing's words, a fierce glint flashed in Murong Bu's eyes, but it was quickly concealed. Instead, he appeared very fawning towards Yang Zixing. This general only wants your head. After all, this general doesn't want to miss such an opportunity to slay a prince of the Great Yin Imperial family. Yang Zixing shook his head, looking at Murong Bu in front of him. At this moment, he had completely lost interest in Murong Bu. Then, he merely pointed his finger at Murong Bu in front of him, and a sharp spear intent directly pierced through Murong Bu's chest. Murong Bu looked at Yang Zixing in disbelief, but at this moment he no longer had a chance to speak, and he fell down, unwilling. After dealing with Murong Bu, Yang Zixing glanced at the battle that was about to end, then casually hung Murong Bu's corpse on his long spear and rushed toward Jinshi City. As for Yu Yun, he resolved the several enshrined ones of the Great Yin Imperial family just moments after Yang Zixing. After dealing with these enshrined ones, Yu Yun also rushed towards Jinshi City. When Yu Yun and Yang Zixing returned, Jinshi City had already been completely taken by Yu Fei. The banner of the Prince of Jinbei's estate was now flying on the city tower of Jinshi City. From this moment on, the entire western region completely fell and became the territory of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. At this time, the Prince of Jinbei's estate already possessed the northern and western regions. This battle launched by the Prince of Jinbei's estate was not merely about taking the western region. At this moment, a white robe army was constantly plundering cities in the eastern region. In just half a month, this white robe army had taken more than half of the entire eastern region. This white robe army was also the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Strictly speaking, this army was Chu Fan's army. It was he who summoned Chun Qingji and the White Robe Army. At our current speed, we can successfully conquer the entire eastern region in at most 1 month. In Yuansheng, a prosperous city in the eastern region, Chun Qingji was constantly reviewing on the sand table how to take down the entire eastern region. At this time, he, like Yu Fei, had been campaigning for half a month. In this half month, Chun Qingji had taken half of the eastern region, while the king of Jindong had not yet reacted. Our speed will probably not be as fast as before, as the king of Jindong already knows our movements. Marshal Chu Hang, beside Chun Qingji, frowned and said after hearing Chun Qingji's words. He was the vice-marshal whom Chu Long had arranged to lead the army and assist Chun Qingji this time. And in this half-month, Marshal Chu Hang was also very impressed by Chun Qingji in front of him. He had not expected Chun Qingji to possess such terrifying commanding talent. Even when facing Chen Qingji, he felt that he would not be Chen Qingji's opponent. At the same time, Marshal Chu Hang was also very curious as to where Chu Fan had found such powerful generals and armies. Marshal Chu Hang could confidently affirm that the White Robe army in front of him definitely far surpassed most of the armies of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty. Chapter 93. The only two non-royal princes of the Great Yin Dynasty, Chu Fan and Qinjiao City, clashes begin. I believe the king of Jindong is currently considering how to face our army. That old fox won't easily go to war with us. Chen Qingji also nodded after hearing Marshal Chu Hang's words. During this time, he had learned about the king of Jindong through the net of Luo's intelligence. The king of Jindong was the only non-imperial king in the Great Yin Dynasty besides the prince of Jinbei. However, the Great Yin imperial family was very at ease with the king of Jindong. The main reason, apart from the king of Jindong's low profile, was probably because he only had one daughter. In the future, the entire eastern region would return to the Great Yin imperial family's hands, which is why the Great Yin Dynasty had not chosen to act against the king of Jindong. Of course, there was another reason. If the Great Yin imperial family truly acted against the king of Jindong, it might force the king of Jindong to side with the prince of Jinbei. This was naturally not what the Great Yin imperial family wished to see. That's right. With the king of Jindong's temperament, he will likely choose to resist our attack, but won't actively launch an offensive against us. Of course, the most probable outcome is that he will report the situation here to the Great Yin Dynasty, and then he will simply ignore the war between us and the Great Yin Dynasty. Marshal Chu Hang naturally understood the king of Jindong's temperament. He sighed as he gazed leisurely in the direction of Jindong City. Although they had swiftly taken half of the eastern region in the past half-month, the battles ahead would be much more difficult than those of the last half-month. Just as war was breaking out on the Great Yin Dynasty's side, Chu Fan and the others had arrived at the Fengyin Dynasty. The Fengyin Dynasty truly lived up to its reputation as the eastern region's foremost imperial dynasty. The cultivators here generally had higher cultivation than those in the Great Yin Dynasty. Of course, perhaps because the heavenly prodigy battle was approaching, the cultivators who came here generally had higher cultivation. Moreover, as soon as Chu Fan entered the Fengyin Dynasty, he saw many prodigies in the Meridian Opening Realm. Of course, these prodigies were nothing to Chu Fan now. After all, Chu Fan had successfully made a breakthrough to the perfected Dharma aspect realm. During his journey, his cultivation had successfully broken through a minor realm. At this moment, Chu Fan was only one step away from entering the so-called King realm. Upon arriving at the Fengyin Dynasty, Chu Fan led his accompanying team into the inn prepared by the Fengyin Dynasty. To prepare for this heavenly prodigy battle, the Fengyin Dynasty had built many inns around the heavenly prodigy battle venue. Although these palaces where outsiders stayed were nominally inns, their luxuriousness was in no way inferior to the palaces where ordinary generals resided. This also demonstrated the strength of the Fengyin Dynasty. And Chu Fan's group had an additional person, a man holding a golden mace. This was Qin Shu Bao from the Sui and Tang dynasties, whom Chu Fan had summoned using his summoning opportunity this month. His cultivation had reached the perfected Dharma aspect realm. What made Chu Fan happiest was that Qin Shu Bao also brought with him 200,000 black armored iron cavalry upon his emergence. However, Chu Fan had only summoned Qin Shu Bao. As for the 200,000 black armored iron cavalry, he had not summoned them. Upon arriving at the venue where the Fengyin Dynasty held the heavenly prodigy battle, Chu Fan did not remain idle. Instead, he began to stroll around the so-called Tianjiao city of the Fengyin Dynasty. Because this was the city in the eastern region where the heavenly prodigy battle was held, it was named Tianjiao City. Young master, it's so lively here, much livelier than our Suzhou city. Qingyao couldn't help but exclaim as she looked at the bustling Tianjiao city. That's natural. This is the Tianjiao city of the Fengyin Dynasty, after all. If it weren't bustling, how could it have been chosen by the Fengyin Dynasty as the venue for the heavenly prodigy battle? Chu Fan also found the prosperity here to be perfectly normal. After all, if Tianjiao City wasn't prosperous, how could the Fengyin Dynasty have chosen this place as the venue for the heavenly prodigy battle? Moreover, after years of hosting the heavenly prodigy battle, Tianjiao City would become prosperous even if it wasn't already. This time, Chu Fan only brought Qingyao and Yuan Qingdu. Of course, besides Qingyao and Yuan Qingdu, Xiao Zi was naturally also by his side. Yuan Qingdu was not wearing his golden armor at this time. Instead, he was dressed in a simple white everyday robe. This so-called heavenly prodigy battle isn't much. So far, the highest cultivation of those so-called prodigies I've met is only the divine power realm. Xiao Zi, who was by Chu Fan's side, said with a pout. She had originally thought this heavenly prodigy battle would be very interesting, But Xiaozi hadn't expected that the highest cultivation of those so-called prodigies she had met so far was only the divine power realm. Moreover, there weren't many prodigies who had reached the divine power realm. There were only a few. This is the eastern region after all, so it naturally can't compare to the central region where Miss Zhao is from. Here, those who can cultivate to the divine power realm are already considered very good prodigies. Chu Fan explained with a smile after hearing Xiaozi's words. If he hadn't awakened the system, his current cultivation probably wouldn't even reach the divine power realm. Therefore, these divine power realm prodigies were already considered top prodigies in the eyes of the eastern region. What kind of prodigies are they in front of you? Aren't they also raised in the eastern region? Your cultivation has already surpassed this young lady's. Even in the Tianxian Holy Land, you would be considered a quasi-saint level figure. Xiaozi pouted her small mouth angrily after hearing Chu Fan's words. She understood the monstrous talent of Chu Fan beside her. Their talent can't compare to mine. Chu Fan chuckled after hearing Xiaozi's words. However, he was speaking the truth. He possessed the innate Dao Body and the heaven-swallowing demonic art. Even the saints of the central region couldn't match his cultivation speed. What kind of riffraff dares to be presumptuous in my Tianjiao city? Although Chu Fan's voice wasn't loud, it was still heard by the people around him. A sneer then came from the crowd. Immediately after, a young man wearing a luxurious long robe with golden embroidery slowly walked out from the crowd, looking at Chu Fan with arrogance in his eyes. Of course, his gaze also unreservedly swept over Qingyao and Xiaozi in front of him. What are you? How dare you be presumptuous in front of my young master? Qingyao saw the arrogant look in the eyes of the young man in the luxurious long robe as he looked at her young master. She instantly stepped forward, her face grim, and stared at the young man. At the same time, the killing intent emanating from Qingyao slowly revealed itself. Who this young master is, you are not worthy to know. However, this maid of yours is quite beautiful. How about she comes to follow this young master? The young man in the luxurious long robe looked at Qingyao with a burning gaze, and at the same time, he provoked Chu Fan. Meanwhile, the several guards by his side pressed closer to Chu Fan, as if they would kill Chu Fan on the spot if he didn't agree. Chapter 94, The Killing Intent of Chu Fan, the young city lord of Tianjiao City. Chu Fan did not expect that he would encounter such a thing just after arriving at the so-called Tianjiao City, but he didn't pay much attention to the young man in front of him. After all, the cultivation of the few guards beside this young man was merely the divine power realm. What could a few small divine power realm guards do to him? Slap him. Chu Fan couldn't even be bothered to look at the young man. His voice slowly drifted out, as if he were simply swatting a fly. After Qingyao heard Chu Fan's words, she instantly arrived by the young man's side. Her figure was like a ghost as she delivered 2 slaps to the young man's face. The powerful force immediately sent the young man flying, leaving 2 deep palm prints on his face. At this moment, the young man's face was swollen like a pig's head. You dare hit me? Do you know who this young master is? Qingyao's action completely enraged the young man. The young man stared fiercely at Chu Fan, while the divine power realm guard around him finally reacted and surrounded him. When this young master hits someone, he never needs to look at who he is or what his status is. Chu Fan didn't want to bother with the young man in front of him at all. If he hadn't currently suppressed his killing intent, the young man would have already been dead. Brat, you are dead for sure. This young master is Wang Tian, the young lord of Tianjiao City. My father is a Dharma aspect realm existence. You will surely die today. After hearing Chu Fan's arrogant words, the young man instantly became furious. He stared at Chu Fan with eyes full of killing intent and spoke. What? He's actually the son of the Tianjiao City Lord? It looks like this youth has kicked an iron plate. That's right. We are in Tianjiao City right now, and the City Lord cultivation has reached the Dharma aspect realm. The power behind this youth probably won't interfere on his behalf. After all, that's a Dharma aspect realm City Lord. I originally thought this would be a good show, but I didn't expect it to end so quickly. What a pity for this youth, to run into the little tyrant Wang Tian. The surrounding cultivators instantly reacted after hearing Wang Tian's words, and they simultaneously looked toward Chu Fan with pity. At this moment, they all believed that Chu Fan would not escape disaster this time. After all, Wang Tian was the little tyrant of Tianjiao City. Even the imperial princes of the 4 great dynasties would give Wang Tian face. Yet now Wang Tian had been beaten into a pig's head in public. Such a situation had truly never occurred before. Your father is a Dharma aspect realm existence, but that doesn't mean you are a Dharma aspect realm existence. Chu Fan didn't show the slightest fear toward the little tyrant in front of him. He looked at Wang Tian with disdain, his eyes filled with contempt. You are courting death. All of you go and kill him. Wang Tian instantly became enraged seeing Chu Fan's disdainful expression. So he ordered the Divine Power Realm guards beside him. Upon hearing Wang Tian's command, the Divine Power Realm guards charged directly toward Chu Fan, drawing the broadswords in their hands. The aura of the Divine Power Realm instantly erupted from their bodies. In an instant, the surrounding commoners and cultivators retreated far away, looking at Chu Fan with a hint of pity in their eyes. "Qingyao, leave none alive." Chu Fan looked at the Divine Power Realm guards in front of him without any worry, instead calmly instructing Qingyao. After Qingyao heard Chu Fan's words, she instantly transformed into a phantom and disappeared from the spot. When she reappeared, she was already standing next to the Divine Power Realm guards. Her finger seemed to transform into a long spear as she lightly pointed it toward one Divine Power Realm guard. Immediately afterward, an invisible spear intent directly obliterated the Divine Power Realm guard. Having completed this, Qingyao continued to move against the other Divine Power Realm guards. In just a few breaths, all the Divine Power Realm guards in front of them had fallen to the ground. Having done all this, Qingyao had no intention of stopping. She quickly appeared in front of Wang Tian and kicked him. However, just as Qingyao's foot was about to land on Wang Tian, a powerful aura appeared beside Wang Tian, blocking Qingyao's kick. At the same time, it carried Wang Tian's body hundreds of meters backward. Seeing this, Qingyao stopped her attack and returned to Chu Fan's side without any hesitation. The events that unfolded in just a few breaths completely shocked everyone present. They had originally thought this youth would perish in Tianjiao City, but they hadn't expected him to have such a highly cultivated woman by his side. Today's events are truly interesting. It seems the background of this youth is not simple. This woman's cultivation has reached at least the Grotto Heaven realm. How could the power capable of cultivating a Grotto Heaven realm maidservant be simple? Perhaps today we will see the city lord of Tianjiao City appear. We just don't know if the background behind this youth can convince the Tianjiao City lord to spare his life. Perhaps, maybe the youth is an imperial prince of one of the imperial dynasties. If the youth really is an imperial prince of an imperial dynasty, the Tianjiao City lord truly wouldn't dare to do anything to him. The group of cultivators who had just been pitying Chu Fan now looked toward him with curiosity. At this moment, they were all speculating whether Chu Fan might be an imperial prince from one of the four great dynasties. After all, his maidservant had reached at least the Grotto Heaven realm. If that was the case, Chu Fan's background would definitely not be simple. "May I ask where young master comes from? Do you know that my young lord is the young lord of Tianjiao City? Choosing to move against my young lord represents declaring war on my Tianjiao City. Is the power behind young master planning to declare war on my Tianjiao City?" The guardian beside Wang Tian slowly stepped forward and questioned Chu Fan, a look of apprehension appearing in his eyes. As an existence at the Grotto Heaven Perfection realm, Qingyao's kick just now had given him a powerful shock. Therefore, he knew that Qingyao had reached at least the Grotto Heaven Perfection realm, or even the Spirit Roaming realm. This was the reason he was threatening Chu Fan. Otherwise, based on past situations, he would have already attacked Chu Fan, as the dignity of Tianjiao City was not something anyone could challenge. So what if it's declaring war? This young master will kill him today, and we'll see how Tianjiao City declares war on me. Chu Fan slowly spoke while looking at the murderous Wang Tian. If it had been at the beginning, he wouldn't have been full of killing intent toward Wang Tian. But now, Chu Fan's face was covered in killing intent. He could not possibly leave someone who harbored killing intent toward him alive in this world. Chapter 95: The Appearance of the City Lord of Tianjiao, Wang Long, and Yuan Qingdu, who was in no way inferior. Moreover, he now possessed Yuan Qingdu of the King Realm, which meant he no longer needed to worry about his safety throughout the entire eastern region. "Young master, are you?" This guardian of the Grotto Heaven realm revealed a hint of killing intent in his eyes upon hearing Chu Fan's words, but he quickly hid it. Qingyao attack. Before the cultivator of Tianjiao City in the Grotto Heaven realm could finish speaking, Chu Fan directly gave the command to Qingyao. Upon hearing Chu Fan's order, Qingyao immediately took her instantaneous spear from her storage ring. Then, holding the instantaneous spear, she charged towards the cultivator before her. The aura belonging to the Spirit Roaming realm completely erupted from her, and in just an instant, the long spear in her hand had already reached the cultivator of Tianjiao City. The cultivator of Tianjiao City never dreamed that Chu Fan would actually plan to kill them here, but at this moment, he didn't have much time to react. He quickly pulled a long sword from his spatial ring and used it to block Qingyao's attack. The next second, the long spear in Qingyao's hand collided with the long sword in his hand, and at the moment of impact, a terrifying force directly sent the cultivator of Tianjiao City flying. Although he had known from the beginning that the woman before him was not simple, he had not expected her strength to be so terrifying. But how could Qingyao wait for him to react? Qingyao continued to wield her instantaneous spear and charged towards the cultivator of Tianjiao City, creating numerous spear flowers. She herself transformed into a blur, and when she reappeared, the instantaneous spear in her hand was already 3 feet in front of the cultivator of Tianjiao City. Perhaps the cultivator of Tianjiao City felt a threat of death approaching him, so he quickly dodged. But how could a cultivator of the Grotto Heaven realm withstand the attack of Qingyao, a cultivator of the late Xinyu realm? Qingyao's movements paused for an instant. Then she changed her spear technique and directly killed the cultivator of Tianjiao City. After doing all this, Qingyao ignored the dead cultivator of Tianjiao City in the Grotto Heaven realm, and instead slowly walked towards Wang Tian with the instantaneous spear in her hand. "No, don't come over. I am the young city lord of Tianjiao City." Wang Tian also reacted from his shock at this moment, constantly retreating, his face filled with terror. And Qingyao, upon hearing his words, continued to walk towards him expressionlessly. This woman's strength is too terrifying. Even a cultivator of the Grotto Heaven realm couldn't withstand 2 moves against her. Her cultivation must have reached the spirit roaming realm. Indeed, it seems this young man's background is not simple to have a spirit roaming realm made by his side. And I feel that the cultivation of the domineering man beside him is probably even higher. Now that you mention it, I really do think that man's cultivation is higher. After all, he gives off a very safe feeling just by standing there. I wonder what the background of this young master is, to have such powerful guardians protecting him. This time, Tianjiao City has probably kicked an iron plate. Seeing Qingyao quickly deal with the Grotto Heaven realm cultivator from Tianjiao City, these cultivators were instantly shocked again. They hadn't expected Qingyao's strength to be so terrifying. At the same time, they also noticed Yuan Qingdu, whom they had previously overlooked, and suddenly felt that Chu Fan was becoming mysterious. They also became curious about the always powerful Tianjiao City. Presumptuous. Who dares to touch my son? This city lord will exterminate his 9 clans. Just as Qingyao was about to reach Wang Tian, an angry voice echoed from the sky, and at the same time, a ray of light streaked across the sky. Then this ray of light directly shot toward Qingyao. Seeing this, Qingyao dared not be careless, and quickly used the instantaneous spear in her hand to block the attack. Then Qingyao herself was sent flying by this powerful force, and she deeply plunged the instantaneous spear into the ground. However, even so, she could not withstand this powerful force, and the instantaneous spear plunged into the ground, retreated along with Qingyao's body. Instantly, a deep spear mark was carved into the ground. Just as Qingyao was about to lose control of her body, Yuan Qingdu lightly flashed to her side. Then he gently patted Qingyao's shoulder, and Qingyao stopped. However, Qingyao's hands were trembling at this moment. Clearly, the previous blow had caused her no small injury. In fact, it was not Qingyao's fault for failing to withstand this blow, mainly because this blow was an angry strike from the city lord of Tianjiao City, and its power had far exceeded what a cultivator of the spirit roaming realm could withstand. Qingyao had already done well to reach this point. Yuan Qingdu slowly took the instantaneous spear from Qingyao's hand, lightly weighed the instantaneous spear, and then looked towards the direction for which the voice had come. And Qingyao walked towards Chu Fan, knowing that the upcoming battle was no longer something she could participate in. Not only Yuan Qingdu, but everyone's gaze was directed towards the source of the voice, and at the same time, they had a guess in their hearts. Under everyone's gaze, a man dressed in black robes slowly appeared from the sky, and a Dharma aspect, realm, aura emanated from his body. His arrival instantly suppressed all the cultivators present. Of course, his oppressive feeling did not reach Chu Fan. After all, a Yuan Qingdu of the King realm stood in front of Chu Fan. "Who are you, to oppress my son Wang Long in my Tianjiao City? Do you truly not hold my Tianjiao City in your eyes?" The man was precisely Wang Long, the city lord of Tianjiao City. He looked at Yuan Qingdu with a profound gaze, although he did not sense any cultivation from Yuan Qingdu. But he did not believe that someone who could so easily block his attack had no cultivation. "He dared to show killing intent towards my young master, so he must die. What? Do you want to protect him?" Yuan Qingdu lightly placed the instantaneous spear behind his back, then looked at Wang Long in the sky, and said righteously. At this moment, Yuan Qingdu had not released the aura belonging only to the King realm, but the oppressive feeling emanating from him when he spoke these words was immense. This was Yuan Qingdu, known as the #1 warrior of great sway. Even without using any cultivation, his oppressive presence was not something ordinary people could bear. One must know that his title as the #1 warrior of great sway was earned through his fists. Chapter 96: The Shocked Crowd of Tianjiao City. Xiao Zi speculation about Chu Fan. Wang Long's expression became uncertain after hearing Yuan Chengdu's threatening words. He naturally hadn't expected Yuan Chengdu to threaten him like this. But how could Wang Long end things so hastily? Moreover, the person in front of him was his son, and more importantly, the Fengyan dynasty was backing him, so he wasn't overly worried. Your Excellency, if you say that, does it mean there's nothing to discuss? After a moment of thought, Wang Long slowly stepped forward and spoke, his middle stage of the Dharma body realm aura completely erupting. He dies, or both of you die. Yuan Chengdu looked at Wang Long in front of him and spoke leisurely, without the slightest fluctuation in his eyes, as if he was narrating a trivial matter. Father, kill him. Wang Tian hadn't expected the person in front of him to still be so arrogant even after his father arrived. He regained his arrogant attitude and spoke to Wang Long. When his gaze shifted to Chu Fan, it was filled with hatred and killing intent. Yuan Chengdu act. Seeing Wang Tian still daring to show killing intent towards him, Chu Fan also lost patience and directly ordered Yuan Chengdu. After speaking, Chu Fan couldn't even be bothered to look in Wang Tian's direction. Upon hearing Chu Fan's command, Yuan Chengdu immediately took his instantaneous spear and charged towards Wang Long. With each step, his aura grew stronger. By the time he reached Wang Long, his aura had also reached the perfected Dharma aspect realm. To deal with a mere Wang Long, Yuan Chengdu didn't intend to expose his king realm aura. Perfected Dharma aspect realm. Who exactly are you? Wang Long was completely stunned after sensing the perfected Dharma aspect realm aura emanating from Yuan Chengdu. He had initially felt that Yuan Chengdu was not simple, but he hadn't expected Yuan Chengdu's cultivation to have reached the perfected Dharma aspect realm. One must know that the strongest individual in the entire Fengyan dynasty was only at the perfected Dharma aspect realm. Now, Yuan Chengdu, standing before him, had already reached the perfected Dharma aspect realm. Didn't that mean Yuan Chengdu could already walk unhindered throughout the entire Fengyan dynasty? What made Wang Long even more disbelieving was that such a strong individual was actually someone else's subordinate. At this moment, he was not only incredulous but also began to speculate about Chu Fan's identity. A strong individual at the perfected Dharma aspect realm? Does my eastern region really have such a strong individual? Yes, there must be, but what I can't understand is that a strong individual at the perfected Dharma aspect realm is actually someone else's subordinate. It seems this young master's background is not simple. This young master might not be from my eastern region. After all, the strongest people in my eastern region are only cultivators at the perfected Dharma aspect realm, and a mere attendant by this young master's side has reached the perfected Dharma aspect realm. I just don't know which region this young master comes from. When I first saw this young master and the woman next to him, I felt that their identities were very noble. Now it seems my prediction was correct. The cultivators present, upon hearing Wang Long's words, all looked towards Chu Fan with curious gazes. At the same time, they began to curry favor with Chu Fan, for if they could catch the eye of such a great figure, they would surely soar to success. When Xiao Zi heard the discussions of these cultivators, she also looked curiously at Chu Fan beside her. She herself indeed came from the Taishan Holy Land in the central region, but she couldn't understand where Chu Fan in front of her came from. After all, if Chu Fan was truly born and raised in the eastern region, then how could he have so many strong individuals by his side? Although these strong individuals were nothing in the Taishan Holy Land, these cultivators were considered the strongest and most top-tier existences in the entire eastern region. Of course, the most important thing was that the Dharma aspect and King Realm cultivators following Chu Fan were all quite young. Even in their Taishan Holy Land, they could be called prodigies. In fact, Yuan Chengdu, Zhao Zilong, and others summoned by Chu Fan were all in their peak period, so their ages naturally couldn't be old. It could be said that among the people Chu Fan had summoned, perhaps only old Huang was not young. Of course, Zhao Gao's age also reached 40 or 50, but such an age was nothing in the entire Xuanwan world. After all, as long as one breaks through the King Realm, their lifespan would increase to 1,000 years, and the Dharma aspect realm was 500 years. As for the realms above the King Realm, lifespans would increase by thousands of years at every turn, so an age of a few decades was truly nothing in the Xuanwan world. Those strong individuals would spend hundreds of years in seclusion with a casual retreat. Miss Xiao, have you taken a liking to this young master, staring at this young master like that? At this moment, Chu Fan also noticed that Xiao Zi beside him kept looking at him, so he couldn't help but tease her. Brother Chu Fan, you're too narcissistic, aren't you? The people this young lady would take a liking to are all peerless prodigies. You're still too weak. Xiao Zi came back to her senses after hearing Chu Fan's words, so she gave Chu Fan a roll of her eyes, then said with longing, I wonder how strong the peerless prodigies Miss Xiao mentioned are. I'll see if I still have a chance. Chu Fan continued to tease after hearing Xiao Zi's words. Of course, at this time, he also wanted to learn from Xiao Zi how powerful the true prodigies of the Central Region really were. Talk to me when you break through to the true king realm. Xiao Zi listened to Chu Fan's words and carefully sized him up before speaking, though her face carried a hint of hope. Ever since Xiao Zi learned that Chu Fan's physique was the innate Dao Body, she had always looked forward to Chu Fan's growth. Although Chu Chun was a prodigy rarely seen in the Taishan Holy Land for thousands of years, Chu Chun had not truly grown up yet. Because the previous saint of the Taishan Holy Land had already reached the saint entry level in cultivation. And to be on the Central Region prodigy list, one's cultivation must reach the king realm. As for the top few on the prodigy list, their cultivation had even reached the true king realm. So this was why Xiao Zi told Chu Fan to wait until he broke through to the true king realm. As long as Chu Fan truly broke through to the true king realm, he would have a chance to enter the Central Region prodigy list and even achieve a very good ranking on the prodigy list. Xiao Zi even felt that this guy in front of her could take first place on the prodigy list. After all, Chu Fan's talent was the strongest Xiao Zi had ever seen. Just as Chu Fan and Xiao Zi were chatting and laughing, the great battle between Yuan Qingdu and Wang Long had already begun. Although Yuan Qingdu only exposed his perfected Dharma aspect realm cultivation, he suppressed Wang Long from the very beginning, sending Wang Long flying with just a few moves. Chapter 97. The killing of Wang Long and Wang Tian brings the incident to a close. The instantaneous spear appeared incredibly domineering in Yuan Qingdu's hands. Every thrust carried terrifying power. The instant the weapon in Wang Long's hand collided with the instantaneous spear in Yuan Qingdu's hand, a terrifying force immediately entered his body from his weapon. In just the span of a few breaths, Yuan Qingdu had dealt with Wang Long before him. It could be said that the cultivators watching the battle in Tianjiao City hadn't even reacted before Wang Long was already collapsed on the ground, unable to rise. At this moment, he was continually spitting large mouthfuls of fresh blood. There was also a massive indentation on his chest, where a faint fist imprint could be vaguely seen. Furthermore, his long sword was snapped directly into two pieces, lying beside him. This scene thoroughly shocked everyone present. They had not expected that this Dharma aspect realm city lord of Tianjiao City would be defeated so easily. It could even be said that the city lord of Tianjiao City was beaten down and unable to stand, without even having the capacity to resist. Even Wang Tian, who had just been full of arrogance, was completely stunned when he saw his own father lying on the ground, unable to rise. He hadn't expected his Dharma aspect realm father to be defeated so effortlessly. When Wang Tian looked at Chu Fan at this moment, his eyes were filled with terror. Now, he believed that Chu Fan was capable of killing him. I wonder if you think you have the ability to save your son now. Looking at the collapsed Wang Long, Yuan Qingdu slowly walked forward and spoke to him. At the same time, his eyes held a great deal of disdain, as if the person before him was unworthy of being his opponent. I admit I am not your excellency's match, but this is the Fengyun dynasty. Attacking me means making an enemy of the Fengyun dynasty. Does your excellency truly intend to feud with my Fengyun dynasty? Wang Long still held a sliver of hope in his heart at this moment, hoping that the person before him would show some apprehension towards the Fengyun dynasty. Thus, he took a deep breath and looked at Yuan Qingdu. Ridiculous. Do you think the Fengyun dynasty would offend a powerhouse like this general for your sake? Yuan Qingdu laughed after hearing Wang Long's words, then slowly walked over to Wang Long's side, stepped on Wang Long's hand, and spoke scornfully. Naturally, he was not afraid of the Fengyun dynasty now. Moreover, if the Fengyun dynasty knew that his cultivation had reached the king realm, how could they possibly offend him for the sake of a Dharma aspect realm city lord? In truth, no imperial dynasty would easily offend a Dharma aspect realm existence, let alone when the strength Yuan Qingdu displayed had already reached the perfected Dharma aspect realm. After hearing Yuan Qingdu's words, Wang Long completely gave up hope, because he knew himself that the Fengyun dynasty could not possibly offend a mysterious power for his sake. Following this, Wang Long cast his gaze upon Wang Tian, who was not far in front of him. At this moment, he wished he could rush over and slap Wang Tian to death. He had not expected that his Dharma aspect realm, which he had broken through to with such difficulty, would ultimately end his life because of his own foolish son. Seeing a look of resignation appear in Wang Long's eyes, Yuan Qingdu showed no mercy. With a casual kick, he killed Wang Long before him. Having finished all this, he did not pause at all. Instead, he slowly approached Wang Tian, grabbed him, and dragged Wang Tian's body slowly toward Chu Fan. Young master, your subordinate has brought this person. Yuan Qingdu respectfully said this as he threw Wang Tian in front of Chu Fan. After speaking, he returned the instantaneous spear to Qing Yao. Qing Yao, who received the instantaneous spear, immediately put it into her spatial ring, and then slowly stood beside Chu Fan. This young master said you would die. Even the power behind you cannot prevent your death. Chu Fan slowly spoke, looking at the terrified Wang Tian before him. At the same time, his eyes carried a look of mockery and disdain. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Wang Tian was completely terrified at this moment. He hadn't expected that even his own father's intervention couldn't stop the person before him. What astonished him even more was that his Dharma aspect realm father had fallen so easily into the hands of the person before him. Kill him. Chu Fan couldn't be bothered to look at Wang Tian. He slowly continued walking into the city with Xiao Zi, but his voice slowly rang out. After hearing Chu Fan's voice, Yuan Qingdu casually waved his hand towards Wang Tian. The next second, Wang Tian, who was begging for mercy, completely perished, his stiff corpse falling directly onto the ground. Having finished all this, Yuan Qingdu completely ignored the corpses of Wang Tian and Wang Long, quickly catching up to Chu Fan's pace and following beside him to protect him. It wasn't until Chu Fan and the others had left for a long time that the surrounding commoners and cultivators finally reacted. The city lord just fell like that. I didn't see wrong, did I? The guard of this mysterious young master killed the city lord so easily. Just what is the background of this mysterious young master? That guard beside him is an existence who has reached the perfected Dharma aspect realm. Such a powerhouse is considered top tier in our eastern region. I never expected such a powerhouse to appear in Tianjiao City. Alas, the entire Tianjiao City is probably not going to be peaceful next. After all, Tianjiao City is within the Fengyun Dynasty's territory. The Fengyun Dynasty shouldn't just ignore this, right? No matter what, this matter has nothing to do with us. All we have to do next is wait and watch the show. The cultivators who had witnessed the entire incident began discussing how the Fengyun Dynasty would deal with Chu Fan and the others. Some felt that the Fengyun Dynasty might engage in a death feud with Chu Fan and the others. After all, Tianjiao City represented the face of the Fengyun Dynasty, and it was also the location where the heavenly prodigy battle of the prodigy battle was held across the entire eastern region. However, others felt that the Fengyun Dynasty would likely let the matter drop, as Chu Fan had an existence at the perfected Dharma aspect realm by his side. The Fengyun Dynasty should not offend Chu Fan for the sake of the Tianjiao City Lord. Regardless, the conflict between the Fengyun Dynasty and Chu Fan would become their main topic of discussion in the coming days. After all, no one expected Chu Fan to be so audacious as to openly kill the city lord and the young city lord of Tianjiao City. Meanwhile, Chu Fan, the main subject of discussion, wandered around Tianjiao City for a while before returning to the Prince of Zhenbei's estate station in Tianjiao City. During this half-day, Chu Fan also discovered that many famous prodigies from the eastern region had already appeared in Tianjiao City. Among them was Gongsun Jian, who was known as the #1 prodigy of the Great Yin Dynasty. Chapter 98, Chu Fan's name resounded throughout Tianjiao City, the city where geniuses gathered. Over the next few days, Chu Fan chose not to leave the garrison of the Prince of Zhenbei's estate, not because he feared retaliation from the Fengyun Dynasty. Rather, it was because he found Tianjiao City too boring. Furthermore, during these subsequent days, Chu Fan had been constantly receiving information from the net of Luo regarding the internal warfare within the Great Yin Dynasty. At this time, Chu Fan also learned about the gains made by Yu Fei and Chen Qingji during this period. Overall, Chu Fan was quite satisfied with the military achievements of Yu Fei and Chen Qingji. The speed of the war waged by Yu Fei and Chen Qingji had already exceeded the projections made by Guijia and him. And during these few days, Chu Fan and Guijia were continuously calculating how to quickly seize the Great Yin Dynasty. Because after they seized the Great Yin Dynasty, they would have to face the other 3 great dynasties. After all, the other 3 great dynasties could not possibly watch idly as he took control of the entire Great Yin Dynasty. Naturally, during these few days, the name Chu Fan completely resounded throughout the entire Tianjiao City. Although he did not reveal his name when he killed Wang Long, the city lord of Tianjiao City, that day. However, when he returned that day, Chu Fan did not conceal his identity. He directly led Yuan Qingdu and his men into the garrison of the Prince of Zhenbei's estate. This allowed the spies in Tianjiao City to learn Chu Fan's true identity, and the spies and the group of cultivators who received this news were extremely shocked. They had not expected that the one who killed the city lord of Tianjiao City was actually the heir of the Prince of Zhenbei's estate from Great Yin. This time, Chu Fan completely established the reputation of the entire Prince of Zhenbei's estate. Although the former Prince of Zhenbei's estate could be considered a first-rate power in the entire eastern region, it absolutely could not compare to its current status. After all, the current prince of Jinbei's estate possesses an existence in the perfected Dharma aspect realm, meaning the current strength of the prince of Jinbei's estate has far surpassed its past self. The current prince of Jinbei's estate has been listed as a forbidden zone by many cultivators, and they have also categorized the rank of the prince of Jinbei's estate as the rank of an imperial dynasty. Of course, what makes these cultivators curious is whether the Fengyun dynasty will go to war with the prince of Jinbei's estate. Perhaps the Fengyun dynasty of the past would not have sought trouble with the mysterious young man who killed the city lord of Tianjiao City. But now the identity of this mysterious young man has been exposed. He is not a mysterious young man from elsewhere, but the heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate from the eastern region's prince of Jinbei's estate. Such an identity will no longer be feared by the Fengyun dynasty. You are indeed still so dazzling. No matter where you go, you become the subject of discussion. I wonder when I will be able to catch up to your pace. Inside an inn in Tianjiao City, a veiled woman displayed a gentle smile upon hearing the discussions about Chu Fan. However, her gentle smile quickly turned into a look of worry. I'm afraid the Fengyun dynasty won't let this matter rest. I hope you don't encounter any danger this time. The veiled woman silently prayed for Chu Fan in her heart. Tianyi, is that heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate they are discussing truly as decisive as they say? Just then, an exceptionally beautiful woman sitting beside the veiled woman curiously asked her, her eyes continuously scrutinizing the woman in front of her. Yes, he has always been a very decisive person. At the same time, it is as if no one is worth his attention. He is like a mystery, a person who will never fall into a desperate situation, with everything under his control. The woman was Luo Tianyi of the Divine Elephant Sect. After parting ways with Chu Fan at the prince of Jinbei's estate last time, Chu Fan's figure had constantly appeared in her mind after she returned to the Divine Elephant Sect, and she had mainly come for this heavenly prodigy battle just to see Chu Fan. In her heart, Chu Fan was forever a lofty controller, but she hadn't expected that immediately upon entering Tianjiao City, she would hear discussions about Chu Fan. Luo Tianyi was not too surprised that Chu Fan could easily kill the city lord of Tianjiao City. Is this heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate really as good as you say? This girl is truly curious. After hearing Luo Tianyi's words, the curiosity in the eyes of the woman beside her grew even stronger. She felt that a man whom her friend valued so highly could definitely not be ordinary. When you truly meet him, you will know just how mysterious and wonderful he is. Luo Tianyi smiled after hearing the woman's words, her eyes filled with reminiscence. All right, this girl wants to see what kind of man has you so infatuated. The woman in front of Luo Tianyi immediately rolled her eyes at Luo Tianyi after hearing her words, but at this moment, her curiosity about Chu Fan intensified. Brother Chu Fan, you truly are someone this girl cannot see through. I'm afraid the title of heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate is your weakest title, isn't it? In another direction in Tianjiao City, a barefoot woman smiled sweetly upon hearing the news within Tianjiao City, her eyes carrying a hint of playfulness. This person was none other than Shangwan Qingsheng. She had brought her disciple along to participate in this heavenly prodigy battle. She had not expected that the little one she had met before would now be so famous throughout the entire Tianjiao City. Of course, what surprised her even more was that a guard beside Chu Fan had killed Wang Long, the city lord of Tianjiao City. One must know that Wang Long's cultivation had reached the middle stage of the Dharma Body realm. Qingyu, your master has something to take care of. Wait here for me to return. Subsequently, Shangwan Qingsheng, eager to go to the garrison of the prince of Jinbei's estate to find Chu Fan, spoke to the young girl beside her. After speaking, Shangwan Qingsheng's figure instantly disappeared from the spot, leaving behind the bewildered young girl. What is wrong with master? After hearing the name of the heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate, she seems to have become a different person. Is there something going on between master and this heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate? A mischievous look appeared in the eyes of the young girl who had recovered, and she simultaneously recalled the changes in her master during this period. Heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate, Chu Fan, I wonder if your strength is worthy of me drawing my sword. On the streets of Tianjiao City, a solitary figure was constantly walking. After hearing the discussions among the cultivators moving through Tianjiao City, the solitary figure revealed a smile at the corner of his mouth, and wisps of sword intent emanated from his body. I say, Gongsun Jian, that Chu Fan is nothing more than a rich wastrel. What qualifications does he have to be worthy of you drawing your sword? Why don't you let me see your sword instead? Just as the solitary figure's voice fell, a cheerful voice suddenly rang out beside him, and at the same time, a man holding a jade flute slowly appeared next to the figure. The man looked incredibly unrestrained, as if he were a knight-errant roaming the world. Chapter 99: The Schemes of the Wind and Cloud Dynasty. Azure Dragon King, Yun Qingtian. You will see my sword when the real heavenly prodigy battle arrives. The man known as Gongsun Jian did not look toward the man holding the jade flute. Instead, he replied calmly, "What if I want to see the sword in your hand right now?" Upon hearing Gongsun Jian's words, the man holding the jade flute curved his lips into a smile. Immediately afterward, he swiftly appeared beside Gongsun Jian, and the jade flute in his hand struck directly at Gongsun Jian. Feeling the jade flute strike toward him, Gongsun Jian instantly transformed into an illusory shadow and vanished from his original location. When his figure reappeared, he had already arrived atop a roof eave. "Yu Wuhan, let us save our great battle for the heavenly prodigy battle." Gongsun Jian looked down at the man holding the jade flute and spoke calmly, his voice carrying an undeniable tone. "All right, you Gongsun Jian are truly boring. This young master will leave first." Yu Wuhan had not expected that Gongsun Jian still refused to fight him even under these circumstances, so he put away the jade flute in his hand and vanished from the spot in a few flashes. Gongsun Jian glanced in the direction Yu Wuhan had left and then vanished from the roof eave. While the prodigies were gathering in Tianjiao City, the news regarding Tianjiao City had completely spread to the imperial capital of the Fengyun Dynasty. The imperial family of the Fengyun Dynasty is the Yun family. They have ruled the Fengyun Dynasty for over 1,000 years, and throughout this millennium, the Fengyun Dynasty has completely become the #1 power in the eastern region. I did not expect the Prince of Jinbei's estate of Great Yin to possess such strength. We truly underestimated the Prince of Jinbei's estate of Great Yin. Yun Xiaotian, the contemporary ruler of the Fengyun Dynasty, displayed a gloomy expression after receiving the news. As the #1 power in the eastern region, the Fengyun Dynasty naturally knew the strength of the Prince of Jinbei's estate of Great Yin. However, they had not expected Great Yin to deploy an existence at the perfected Dharma aspect realm this time. One must know that such an existence is considered the most peak existence even within their Fengyun Dynasty. Imperial brother, what we should be considering now is how to settle this disturbance. After all, Tianjiao City concerns the face of our Fengyun Dynasty. A man wearing a flood dragon robe, who was sitting beside Yun Xiaotian, slowly stood up and spoke to Yun Xiaotian with concern. This person was Yun Qingtian, the Azure Dragon King, one of the 3 great princes of the Fengyun Dynasty and a prominent figure within the Fengyun Dynasty. He was also the full brother of Yun Xiaotian, the ruler of the Fengyun Dynasty. Right now, our Fengyun Dynasty must either go to war with the Prince of Jinbei's estate or silently quell this disturbance. However, if we want to go to war with the Prince of Jinbei's estate, there are many things to consider. After all, you have seen the strength of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Perhaps we did not need to keep the Prince of Jinbei's estate in our sights in the past, but now, even I cannot see through the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Yun Xiaotian naturally understood Yun Qingtian's words. He gazed distantly toward the direction of Great Yin. If he had heard this news initially, he would have immediately sent people to destroy the Prince of Jinbei's estate without hesitation. But now, after learning that the Prince of Jinbei's estate possessed an existence at the perfected Dharma aspect realm, Yun Xiaotian felt that the Prince of Jinbei's estate might be hiding some earth-shattering secret. More importantly, if they could not eliminate this cultivator at the perfected Dharma aspect realm in one go, then they would face the endless retaliation of this cultivator at the perfected Dharma aspect realm. At that time, even the Fengyun Dynasty would be unable to bear such consequences. If we remain silent, wouldn't the world think our Fengyun Dynasty is easy to bully? Yun Qingtian, upon hearing Yun Xiaotian's words, instantly understood his imperial brother's thoughts. Thus, he spoke to Yun Xiaotian with a look of unwillingness. In the entire Fengyun Dynasty, only he, Yun Qingtian, dared to speak to Yun Xiaotian this way. At this time, it is impossible for our Fengyun Dynasty to go to war with the Prince of Jinbei's estate, but we could draw the flames of war onto the Great Yin Dynasty. After all, I believe the Murong imperial family cannot possibly watch the Prince of Jinbei's estate rise. Yun Xiaotian shook his head as he looked at his impulsive younger brother. His eyes sparkled, clearly indicating that he already had a plan in mind. Imperial brother, even if we want to scheme against the Prince of Jinbei's estate, we still need to resolve this current incident first. Otherwise, how will the outside world view our Fengyun Dynasty? Although Yun Qingtian knew his imperial brother was currently scheming against the Prince of Jinbei's estate, he could not tolerate this slight. I will issue an imperial decree demanding that the Prince of Jinbei's estate give our Fengyun Dynasty an explanation. The Prince of Jinbei's estate should not choose to become enemies with both our Fengyun Dynasty and the Great Yin Dynasty simultaneously, right? Therefore, the Prince of Jinbei's estate will definitely give our Fengyun Dynasty an explanation. At that time, we just need to sit on a mountain and watch the tigers fight. Yun Xiaotian naturally understood Yun Qingtian's words, so he shook his head and explained. In fact, Yin Xiaodian had already figured it out. He did not intend to become enemies with the Prince of Jinbei's estate right now, as the Prince of Jinbei's estate and the great Yin imperial family were already incompatible like fire and water. Now, Yin Xiaodian only needed to casually stir up the relationship between the great Yin imperial family and the Prince of Jinbei's estate, causing the great Yin imperial family and the Prince of Jinbei's estate to go to war, while their Fengyan dynasty watched the tigers fight from the mountain. In the end, regardless of whether the great Yin imperial family or the Prince of Jinbei's estate won, their Fengyan dynasty would reap the benefits of the conflict. As for the Fengyan dynasty demanding an explanation from the Prince of Jinbei's estate, it was also very simple. Yin Xiaodian believed he knew how the Prince of Jinbei's estate would choose. As long as the Prince of Jinbei's estate chose not to be simultaneously hostile toward their Fengyan dynasty and Great Yin, they would provide an explanation. However, what Yin Xiaodian did not expect was that he was facing Chu Fan, a cheat player. Chu Fan would not give him any explanation whatsoever. Imperial brother, let this king go. This king wants to see just how powerful this so-called Prince of Jinbei's estate really is. After hearing his imperial brother's words, Yin Qingtian excitedly stood up and spoke, a hint of resentment appearing on his face. All right, but no matter what explanation the Prince of Jinbei's estate gives our Fengyan dynasty, you must not act excessively, otherwise you will be sent to guard the imperial mausoleum. After hearing Yin Qingtian's words, a hint of hesitation appeared on Yin Xiaoyan's face, but he quickly made up his mind. Although Yin Qingtian was somewhat impulsive in his actions, he was still the Azure Dragon King of the Fengyan dynasty. Yin Xiaodian believed that the Prince of Jinbei's estate would not do anything too rash. Imperial brother, rest assured, Qingtian will not do anything too overboard. Yin Qingtian's eyes lit up after hearing Yin Xiaoyan's words. He then eagerly cupped his hands toward Yin Xiaotian and left. Fengyan guards, if the Azure Dragon King acts excessively, bring him back immediately. I do not wish to see a great war break out prematurely between the Fengyan dynasty and the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Of course, do not diminish the reputation of the Fengyan dynasty either. As soon as his voice fell, a black shadow vanished within the palace. Chapter 100: The Great Yin Dynasty's Plans, and the attention of Mengyu, the #1 prodigy of the Mongol Yuan dynasty. Of course, at this time, it wasn't just the Fengyan dynasty that received the news. The Great Yin dynasty, which had already arrived at Tianjiao City, also received news about Chu Fan. Damn it. Damn it. How could he appear here unharmed? Has the sixth ancestor already fallen? Impossible, impossible. The sixth ancestor is a late Dharma aspect, stage existence. Murong Li, the emperor of the Great Yin dynasty, was furious upon learning of Chu Fan's actions in Tianjiao City. He had originally thought Chu Fan had fallen on the way, but he didn't expect to receive news about Chu Fan as soon as he arrived in Tianjiao City. He hadn't received any news about his own old ancestor for such a long time, and a bad premonition suddenly arose in Murong Li's heart. Perhaps the sixth ancestor has truly fallen. After all, Chu Fan has a perfected Dharma aspect realm existence by his side. An elder beside Murong Li fell silent for a while after hearing the news about Chu Fan, then slowly spoke to Murong Li. At the same time, his face was terrifyingly gloomy, and a hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes when Chu Fan was mentioned. Fifth ancestor. Has the sixth ancestor truly fallen? After all, the sixth ancestor's strength is so great, and he also had the Golden Guard and our Imperial Army with him. Murong Li spoke unwillingly after hearing the elder's words. Although he had already realized that his own old ancestor had probably truly fallen, how could he be reconciled now? After all, dealing with a mere prince of Jinbei's estate had resulted in the fall of 2 Dharma aspect realm existences. One must know that every Dharma aspect realm existence is a nation's top figure. Similarly, a Dharma aspect realm existence is also a nation's pillar. And now, for their Great Yin dynasty to deal with the Prince of Jinbei's estate, 2 Dharma aspect realm existences had fallen. How could he, as the emperor, accept this? Mobilize all forces to deal with Chu Fan. We can no longer blindly send people to deal with him, or it will only weaken the strength of our Great Yin imperial family. The 5th ancestor of Great Yin also completely understood at this moment. If they wanted to deal with Chu Fan, they had to do so with the force of a thunderbolt. Otherwise, not only would they be unable to deal with Chu Fan, but they would also weaken the strength of their Great Yin imperial family. 5th ancestor, after this heavenly prodigy battle concludes, my Great Yin dynasty will definitely spare no effort to annihilate the entire Prince of Jinbei's estate. Murong Li replied through gritted teeth after hearing his old ancestor's words. If they weren't in Tianjiao City, he would absolutely stake all the power of the entire Great Yin dynasty to annihilate the Prince of Jinbei's estate. However, since the powerful individuals of the Prince of Jinbei's estate are all protecting Chu Fan, then the Prince of Jinbei's estate should be very weak right now. Send a Dharma aspect realm member of the imperial family to the Prince of Jinbei's estate to investigate. If the Prince of Jinbei's estate strength is truly weak, then annihilate the Prince of Jinbei's estate directly. At that time, we only need to seriously deal with Chu Fan. The fifth ancestor of Great Yin seemed to have thought of something at this moment and instructed Murong Li. Murong Li's eyes instantly lit up after hearing his words, and he immediately began to take action. On the other side, Menggu, the emperor of the Mengyuan dynasty, who had just arrived, was also somewhat surprised to hear this news. He hadn't expected this heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, whom they usually didn't take seriously, to be so audacious. How interesting. This heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate has only taken half a year to offend both the Great Yin dynasty and the Fengyan dynasty. I'm afraid that apart from annihilation, there won't be a second possibility awaiting the Prince of Jinbei's estate, right? Menggu said, looking meaningfully in the direction of the Prince of Jinbei's estate's encampment, and at the same time, he became curious about the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. He wanted to see what kind of existence this legendary heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate truly was. Father, your child thinks this heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate is very interesting. Perhaps he has a great trump card to be so reckless and unbridled. After all, he has a perfected Dharma aspect realm existence by his side. As long as he wants to escape, he can escape anywhere in the entire Eastern Domain at any time. A girl of 18 or 19 beside Menggu had a different opinion after hearing his words. She shook her head and spoke to Menggu. Her eyes were full of curiosity. Clearly, she was also curious about this so-called heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate at this moment. You are right. Father overlooked that point. Menggu did not refute the girl's words. Instead, he laughed heartily, his eyes full of doting affection. The only one who could make the emperor of the Mengyuan dynasty dote on her so much was Mengyu, the seventh princess of the Mengyuan dynasty. This seventh princess of the Mengyuan dynasty had been intelligent since childhood. She was also the #1 prodigy of the Mengyuan dynasty, reaching the Grotto Heaven realm at only 19 years old, and was a famous prodigy throughout the entire Mengyuan dynasty and even the entire Eastern Domain. Chu Fan, I wonder what your strength is like, and if you are worth this princess making a move. Mengyu looked meaningfully in the direction of the Prince of Jinbei's estate's encampment after hearing her father's words. At this moment, this seventh princess of Mengyuan also became completely curious about Chu Fan. It wasn't just these three great dynasties that were shocked by Chu Fan's actions. The Tianqing dynasty, also one of the 4 great dynasties of the Eastern Domain, was even more shocked by Chu Fan's actions. Of course, at this time, in addition to being shocked by Chu Fan's actions, the Tianqing dynasty's eyes also revealed a hint of worry. They wouldn't just watch like the Mengyuan dynasty. The Prince of Jinbei's estate and their Tianqing dynasty had always been in contact. If the Prince of Jinbei's estate's strength was truly formidable, then they would have to guard against the Prince of Jinbei's estate next. However, all of this was still too early for them, and other forces naturally also received this news at this time. Thus, in the period that followed, the name Prince of Jinbei's estate completely spread to the ears of all forces. Just as all forces were curious about how the Fengyan dynasty would deal with the Prince of Jinbei's estate. At this time, Yin Xingtian of the Fengyan dynasty also led several spirit-roaming realm experts to the Prince of Jinbei's estate's encampment. Yin Xingtian at this moment was like a lofty immortal or Buddha, looking disdainfully at the Prince of Jinbei's estate's encampment below. Although Yin Xingtian also knew that Chu Fan had a perfected Dharma aspect realm existence by his side, he did not believe that Chu Fan would dare to touch him, the Azure Dragon King of the Fengyan dynasty. After all, he was not just the Azure Dragon King of the Fengyan dynasty. He was also the younger brother of the current emperor of the Fengyan dynasty. It could be said that throughout the entire Fengyan dynasty, this Azure Dragon King was in existence who could walk sideways. And the several spirit-roaming realm experts of the Fengyan dynasty beside him also looked disdainfully at the Prince of Jinbei's estate's encampment below. Chapter 101. Yin Xingtian's Punishment and Investigation, under the spotlight of the masses. Yin Xingtian glanced contemptuously at the Prince of Jinbei's estate encampment below, then signaled with his eyes to a eunuch beside him. The Azure Dragon King of the Fengyan dynasty has arrived, heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate of Great Yin. Why have you not come out to meet him? The eunuch slowly stepped forward and spoke arrogantly toward the Prince of Jinbei's estate encampment below. The eunuch's voice was completely undisguised. The sound, amplified by a cultivator of the divine power realm, quickly spread throughout the entire Prince of Jinbei's estate encampment, and the surrounding cultivators also heard it. Naturally, the Azure Dragon King, Yin Xingtian, had not concealed his arrival at all, so many cultivators had already noticed him when he appeared above the Prince of Junbei's estate encampment. However, at that time, these cultivators did not know the true identity of the man before them. Now, they finally understood that the person standing there was the legendary Azure Dragon King, one of the 3 kings of the Fengyan dynasty. I didn't expect that after only a few days, the Fengyan dynasty would send out the Azure Dragon King. It seems the Fengyan dynasty wants the Prince of Junbei's estate to provide an explanation. Haha, no matter what you say, the Fengyan dynasty is the #1 power in our eastern region. Since Chu Fan, the heir of the Prince of Junbei's estate, publicly humiliated the Fengyan dynasty, how could the Fengyan dynasty possibly let him off? It looks like this so-called heir of the Prince of Junbei's estate of Great Yin is in trouble this time. Of all the people he could offend, he chose the Fengyan dynasty. You mustn't forget that Chu Fan has a perfected Dharma aspect realm existence by his side. If the Fengyan dynasty wants to touch him, they'll have to consider it for a long time, lest they accidentally provoke that perfected Dharma aspect realm existence. That's right. A perfected Dharma aspect realm existence is not someone the Fengyan dynasty would easily provoke, even them. More and more cultivators gather below. In just a moment, tens of thousands of cultivators had assembled. When these cultivators looked toward the Prince of Junbei's estate encampment, their eyes were filled with curiosity. They wanted to know exactly how the Fengyan dynasty planned to handle this matter. After all, Chu Fan had killed a master of the Dharma aspect realm from the Fengyan dynasty this time. Moreover, he had killed this Dharma aspect realm master so openly and righteously. The Fengyan dynasty actually sent out Yun Qingtian. It seems Yun Xiaotian takes this incident very seriously. Meng Guo, at the Mengyuan dynasty encampment, raised his head and spoke slowly while looking toward the Prince of Junbei's estate encampment. At the same time, he grew curious, wondering how the Fengyan dynasty intended to deal with the situation. Meng Yu, beside him, looked toward the Prince of Junbei's estate encampment with an expression of curiosity, though she was more curious about what the legendary heir of the Prince of Junbei's estate actually looked like. Ha, I didn't expect retribution to come so quickly. It seems Chu Fan, that little beast, will perish here. Murong Li, in another direction, looked toward the Prince of Junbei's estate encampment with undisguised delight. At this moment, he felt as if he could already see the Fengyan dynasty striking down Chu Fan. The Fengyan dynasty will not choose to offend Chu Fan. Asking Chu Fan for an explanation now is merely for show, meant for the world to see. Otherwise, the Fengyan dynasty would prefer to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. The older the ginger, the spicier it is. The 5th ancestor of Great Yin understood the Fengyan dynasty's true intention with just a glance. Even if he were in the position of the Fengyan dynasty, he would not choose to fight Chu Fan. After all, Chu Fan and the Great Yin imperial family have such deep enmity. Now, the Fengyan dynasty only needs to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, then reap the benefits of the conflict. Old ancestor, do you mean that the Fengyan dynasty does not intend to fight Chu Fan this time? When Murong Li heard the elder's words, the smile on his face instantly froze. He stared blankly at the elder and asked. The elder nodded after hearing Murong Li's question, then continued to look toward the Prince of Junbei's estate encampment. After seeing the elder nod, Murong Li slowly looked toward the Prince of Junbei's estate encampment. Of course, his eyes were now filled with unconcealed killing intent. At the Prince of Junbei's estate encampment, which was currently the focus of the world attention, Chu Fan naturally knew about the arrival of the so-called Azure Dragon King of the Fengyan dynasty. However, he was not in a hurry. Instead, he leisurely brought Xiao Zi, Qingyao, and others with him as he slowly walked out of the Prince of Junbei's estate encampment. As the gate of the Prince of Junbei's estate encampment slowly opened, Chu Fan's figure completely appeared before the crowd. Those who had never seen Chu Fan before immediately focused their gazes upon him. Many of the women instantly became infatuated upon seeing Chu Fan's appearance. Is this the heir of the Prince of Junbei's estate of Great Yin? He's actually so handsome. Meng Yu, from a distance, couldn't help but be stunned by this sight. She hadn't expected the legendary heir of the Prince of Junbei's estate of Great Yin to be so handsome. I wonder what business brings the Azure Dragon King here. After stepping out of the Prince of Junbei's estate encampment, Chu Fan ignored everyone else. Instead, he slowly raised his head and questioned Yun Qingtian above. At this moment, Chu Fan was neither arrogant nor servile. He showed no signs of conceit or fear. You killed an existence of the Dharma aspect realm from my Fengyan dynasty. Do you not need to give my Fengyan dynasty an explanation? When Yun Qingtian saw Chu Fan acting like this, he was instantly infuriated. However, remembering his imperial brother's instructions, he suppressed the anger in his heart and looked down at Chu Fan with an expression of indignation. Upon hearing Yun Qingtian's words, Everyone else immediately understood his true purpose, and all eyes once again converged on Chu Fan. At that moment, they all wanted to know exactly how Chu Fan would respond to Yun Qingtian. If he was killed, he was killed. I wonder how the Fengyun dynasty intends to punish this young master. Chu Fan did not hesitate after hearing Yun Qingtian's words and spoke directly, as if killing a Dharma aspect realm master of the Fengyun dynasty was as simple as crushing an ant. Chu Fan's response caused all the cultivators present to gasp sharply. They had expected Chu Fan to explain why he killed the Dharma aspect realm expert from Tianjiao City of the Fengyun dynasty, but they had never imagined that Chu Fan would choose such a reply. Even the old ancestor of the great Yan imperial family, who had guessed the Fengyun dynasty's next move from the start, had not anticipated Chu Fan's response, because they all knew that the Fengyun dynasty was merely putting on a show this time. Yet, no one had expected Chu Fan to answer in this manner. Chu Fan's response instantly pushed him into direct conflict with the Fengyun dynasty. Even if the Fengyun dynasty only wanted to put on a show, it would now be very difficult for them to do so. Yun Qingtian above was completely enraged by Chu Fan's provocative words. Chapter 102 The Arrogant Yun Qingtian, the terrifying Luo Cheng. He also hadn't expected Chu Fan below to choose such a decisive reply. Chu Fan, do you know that doing this is provoking my Fengyun dynasty? Yun Qingtian could no longer hold back at this moment, directly roaring at Chu Fan below. The killing intent in his eyes could no longer be hidden and was immediately released. This young master never thought of provoking the Fengyun dynasty. Killing Wang Long was merely because he provoked this young master. If the Fengyun dynasty still thinks this young master is provoking the Fengyun dynasty because of this, then let this young master be provoking your Fengyun dynasty. Chu Fan said leisurely after hearing Yun Qingtian's words. His eyes were calm as water at this time, as if the massive Fengyun dynasty posed no threat to him whatsoever. You are courting death. After hearing Chu Fan's indifferent words, Yun Qingtian was completely enraged. He quickly punched toward Chu Fan's direction. Instantly, a terrifying fist wind fell from the sky toward Chu Fan. Chu Fan showed no intention of dodging when he saw this scene. Just as Yun Qingtian's fist was about to land on Chu Fan, a cyan shadow appeared beside Chu Fan. Then, a cyan light blocked the attack in front of Chu Fan. At the same time, this cyan figure directly punched Yun Qingtian away. After Yun Qingtian was sent flying, everyone finally saw clearly that a woman in cyan robes was standing in front of Chu Fan. As for Yun Qingtian, he slowly stopped after retreating several hundred zhang, looking toward Chu Fan with eyes full of shock. Those who move against my young master die. Qingyao spoke sternly while looking at Yun Qingtian. At the same time, the killing intent in her eyes was fully released without diminishing. Even if the person in front of her was the Azure Dragon King, one of the 3 kings of the Fengyun dynasty, she did not put him in her eyes. Chu Fan, I, this king, will ask one last time. Do you truly intend to provoke my Fengyun dynasty? Yun Qingtian looked at the Qingyao in front of him with eyes full of apprehension, but he still spoke haughtily while looking at Chu Fan. This young master said it already. If the Fengyun dynasty believes this young master is provoking the Fengyun dynasty, then what if this young master provokes your Fengyun dynasty? Chu Fan naturally did not give way at all. He took a slow step forward and spoke calmly while looking at Yun Qingtian. Good. Since that is the case, then don't blame this king for being merciless today. Yun Qingtian was completely angered by Chu Fan's words. He spoke angrily to Chu Fan, and then he looked toward the cultivators of the Xunyu realm in the sky. Although those cultivators of the Xunyu realm hesitated when they saw Yun Qingtian's gaze, they still immediately came to Yun Qingtian's side, releasing their qi and looking toward Chu Fan ahead. Luo Cheng, since they want to play, then go and play with them. Chu Fan did not put Yun Qingtian and the cultivators of the Xunyu realm in front of him in his eyes at all. He spoke slowly to Luo Cheng, who was wearing silver armor beside him. After hearing Chu Fan's words, Luo Cheng walked out holding his silver spear. At the same time, he completely unleashed the qi belonging to the perfected Dharma aspect realm from his body. He instantly turned into a silver light and disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Yun Qingtian. He was seen kicking Yun Qingtian in front of him flying, and then his long spear immediately stabbed toward the cultivators of Xunyu realm who had just been beside Yun Qingtian. These cultivators of Xunyu realm were also extremely shocked when they sensed the qi emanating from Luo Cheng's body. However, upon reacting, they hurriedly took out their weapons to fight Luo Cheng. Is this the cultivator of the perfected Dharma aspect realm beside Chu Fan? His qi is indeed terrifying. Yes, I feel like this surge of qi could overwhelm me at any moment. With such a trump card, Chu Fan can indeed walk sideways across the entire eastern region. However, Chu Fan is definitely being reckless today. He actually dares to openly provoke the Fengyun dynasty like this. Wait, the person who made a move this time is not the same expert of the perfected Dharma aspect realm who acted last time. Does Chu Fan have two masters of the perfected Dharma aspect realm by his side? How is this possible? How could a mere heir of the Prince of Junbei's estate have two masters of the perfected Dharma aspect realm by his side? The great battle instantly captivated everyone present. They hadn't expected this war today to actually break out. Of course, what excited them even more was being able to witness a master of the perfected Dharma aspect realm making a move. However, at this moment, some people recognized that Luo Cheng, who had made a move, was not the same existence of the perfected Dharma aspect realm who had slain Wang long last time. In an instant, the entire crowd exploded into chaos. If this person was not the same existence of the perfected Dharma aspect realm who had acted last time, did that mean Chu Fan had two existences of the perfected Dharma aspect realm by his side? Just within a few breaths of time, while everyone was discussing, Luo Cheng quickly dealt with the cultivators of the Shenyu realm in front of him. For him, these cultivators of the Shenyu realm couldn't even withstand a single move. Therefore, dealing with these cultivators of the Shenyu realm was extremely easy. So strong. The moment they saw Luo Cheng deal with those cultivators of the Shenyu realm, these two words flashed through everyone's minds. At this moment, Yin Qingtian, who had been kicked flying by Luo Cheng, also started to panic. After all, Chu Fan had even slain Wang long, so slaying him now would also be considered normal. Thus, he looked toward Chu Fan in panic. Luo Cheng, meanwhile, slowly walked toward him. Luo Cheng paid no attention whatsoever to the cultivators of the Shenyu realm on the ground who were already half dead. Your Excellency, if you touch the Azure Dragon King, you will truly be endlessly hostile with my Fengyun dynasty. Just as Luo Cheng was about to reach Yin Qingtian, a hoarse voice slowly came from the sky. Then, a figure appeared like a ghost in front of Yin Qingtian. This figure also emitted the qi belonging to the Dharma aspect realm. The qi of the Dharma aspect realm on his body had only just reached the late Dharma aspect stage. When Yin Qingtian saw this person, it was as if he had grasped a life-saving straw. He slowly stood up and positioned himself behind this person. Whoever tries to harm my young master dies. Luo Cheng ignored the late Dharma aspect stage cultivator who had appeared. Instead, he looked seriously toward Yin Qingtian and spoke. At the same time, his steps continued moving toward Yin Qingtian. Everyone was utterly shocked when they saw Luo Cheng's actions. They had originally thought Luo Cheng would stop, but they hadn't expected Luo Cheng to refuse to stop even after an expert from the Fengyun dynasty appeared. Chapter 103 Chu Fan's decision shocked everyone. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, Luo Cheng slowly walked toward Yin Qingtian, holding his silver spear. Every step he took seemed to land directly on the heartbeats of the onlookers. The Azure Dragon King cannot be harmed today. Otherwise, even if it exhausts the entire strength of the Fengyun dynasty, our Fengyun dynasty will still wage war against the Prince of Junbei's estate. The late Dharma aspect stage expert from the Fengyun dynasty looked gravely at Luo Cheng, who was walking toward him. After speaking, he also released the powerful qi belonging to the late Dharma aspect stage. Luo Cheng, who was advancing, stopped upon hearing the words of the late Dharma aspect stage expert from the Fengyun dynasty. He then slowly turned his gaze toward Chu Fan. At this moment, everyone focused their attention on Chu Fan, knowing that he was the main protagonist of today's conflict and all decision-making power rested with him. How will you choose? Mengyu looked curiously at the calm Chu Fan. She was guessing how Chu Fan would decide, though if she were in Chu Fan's position, she might also choose to spare the Azure Dragon King before him. Damn it, how is it that even the Fengyun dynasty can't do anything to him? Moronli looked furiously in Chu Fan's direction. He hadn't expected the Fengyun dynasty to choose a peaceful resolution with Chu Fan even at this stage. No matter what decision Chu Fan makes today, he will thoroughly offend the Fengyun dynasty. It only determines whether the war is delayed or advanced by his decision. The fifth ancestor of Great Yin looked gravely toward Chu Fan. He naturally knew that no matter what decision Chu Fan made, enmity had already been thoroughly established between him and the Fengyun dynasty. This was what their Great Yin hoped to see, but the fact that Chu Fan had two cultivators of the perfected Dharma aspect realm by his side was unexpected. Come back, Luo Cheng. There is no need to bother with a piece of trash. Chu Fan naturally understood at this moment that he could not kill Yin Qingtian, or he would completely establish enmity with the Fengyun dynasty. He had just made an enemy of the Great Yin dynasty, and he did not want to immediately wage war against the Fengyun dynasty, even though his goal was to unify the entire eastern region. However, he currently did not have enough troops to face the entire eastern region. Go back and tell your emperor that although my Prince of Jinbei's estate does not seek trouble, my Prince of Jinbei's estate is not afraid of trouble either. After speaking, Chu Fan addressed the late Dharma aspect stage expert from the Fengyan dynasty. After he finished speaking, he nodded toward Qin Xiong and Yuan Qingdu beside him. Immediately after, Yuan Qingdu and Qin Xiong simultaneously released their Dharma aspect realm qi, and the qi emanating from both of them had reached the perfected Dharma aspect realm. Having completed all this, Chu Fan ignored the astonished crowd and slowly led his people back into the courtyard of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. The strength of this Prince of Jinbei's estate is truly terrifying. Merely the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate has 3 individuals of the perfected Dharma aspect realm by his side. When the late Dharma aspect stage expert from the Fengyan dynasty saw this scene, his eyes showed not only shock, but also deep solemnity. He hadn't expected the strength of the Prince of Jinbei's estate to be so formidable. If there had been only one cultivator of the perfected Dharma aspect realm, their Fengyan dynasty might have immediately broken ties. But the opposing side possessed 3 individuals of the perfected Dharma aspect realm. With such power, the Fengyan dynasty needed to seriously reconsider its options. Yun Qingtian, who was beside him, also had a solemn expression upon seeing this scene. Although he had always been extremely overbearing, he still knew the gravity of the situation, and he could already guess that his imperial brother would likely not make a move against the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate during this time. Subsequently, Yin Qingtian left with the late Dharma aspect stage expert of the Fengyan dynasty. We never expected the great Yin Prince of Jinbei's estate to possess such terrifying strength. The heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate alone has 3 individuals of the perfected Dharma aspect realm by his side. The Fengyan dynasty probably won't start a war with the Prince of Jinbei's estate over this, right? If there were only one individual of the perfected Dharma aspect realm, considering the humiliation the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate inflicted upon the Fengyan dynasty would likely wage war at all costs. But now, the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate has 3 individuals of the perfected Dharma aspect realm by his side. Indeed, no one expected the foundation of the Prince of Jinbei's estate to be so powerful. The balance of power among the 4 great dynasties in the eastern region will likely shift because of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. I heard that the Great Yin dynasty and the Prince of Jinbei's estate are locked in a death feud. Perhaps after this heavenly prodigy battle concludes, one of the 2 powers will vanish from this world. After Yun Qingtian of the Fengyan dynasty left, the cultivators present began to discuss animatedly. Their curiosity about the Prince of Jinbei's estate intensified. After all, if the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate alone had 3 individuals of the perfected Dharma aspect realm by his side, didn't that imply the strength of the Prince of Jinbei's estate far exceeded everyone's imagination? This so-called Prince of Jinbei's estate truly far exceeded our expectations, managing to produce 3 individuals of the perfected Dharma aspect realm all at once. Menggu, on the other side, looked incredulous upon seeing this scene and simultaneously began to ponder his next steps. After all, the current strength of the Prince of Jinbei's estate could already rival their 4 great dynasties. Imperial Father, we must befriend the Prince of Jinbei's estate at all costs. Your daughter has a premonition that the Prince of Jinbei's estate is not so simple. An inscrutable light flickered in Meng Yu's eyes. She slowly withdrew her gaze from the direction of the Prince of Jinbei's estate's encampment and spoke to Menggu before him. Yuer, what about the Prince of Jinbei's estate? Do you think makes them worth befriending? After all, they have now offended the Great Yin dynasty and the Fengyan dynasty. They are facing 2 great imperial dynasties. Menggu spoke to Mengyu with a hint of amusement after hearing her words, though his expression immediately became thoughtful. Imperial Father, do you think the Prince of Jinbei's estate will be destroyed by the 2 imperial dynasties? Mengyu smiled mysteriously at Menggu, and after speaking, she slowly retreated. Only Menggu remained, looking thoughtfully in the direction of the Prince of Jinbei's estate encampment. On the other side, Morongli was already wearing a furious expression. He never imagined that the Prince of Jinbei's estate possessed such terrifying strength. It must be known that 3 individuals of the perfected Dharma aspect realm could rival an army of 1,000,000. It could even be said that if these 3 perfected Dharma aspect realm experts wished to overthrow the ruling position of the Great Yin imperial family, they would only need to slaughter the Great Yin imperial family to achieve it. Chapter 104 Ambush on the Jinbei Prince's Mansion. The former emperor of Great Yin, Morongqiu, even the 5th ancestor of Great Yin, who was beside him, showed a look of horror at this moment. Although he had initially always placed the Prince of Jinbei's estate first, he had not expected the Prince of Jinbei's estate's strength to be so terrifying. From now on, I will decide how to deal with the Prince of Jinbei's estate, and I will personally handle all the experts of the Prince of Jinbei's estate." The fifth ancestor of Great Yin sighed, and then slowly said, his eyes then becoming firm, as if he had made some kind of decision. Does the fifth ancestor plan to recall the other ancestors? Mura only was stunned after hearing his old ancestor's words, but after seeing the determined look in his old ancestor's eyes, he seemed to guess something, so he looked at his old ancestor with surprise. At the same time, the look of horror on his face turned into a joyful smile. After all, the four great dynasties were able to control the eastern region not just by their apparent strength. For example, the strongest apparent force in the current Great Yin dynasty was the fifth ancestor of Great Yin, but careful people would wonder if there were third ancestors and fourth ancestors above the fifth ancestor of Great Yin. Over the next period, the events between the Fengyin dynasty and the Great Yin Prince of Jinbei's estate spread throughout Tianjiao City, and the news that the Prince of Jinbei's estate possessed 3 powerhouses of the perfected Dharma aspect realm also spread throughout Tianjiao City. As for the Fengyin dynasty, there was no movement during these few days, as if the Fengyin dynasty had acquiesced to this matter. But no one knew that Yun Shaotian of the Fengyin dynasty had a huge outburst of anger in the imperial palace when he learned this news. However, in the end, he still controlled his emotions and did not choose to seek trouble with the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Therefore, everyone believed that this matter would probably end here. And the Prince of Jinbei's estate, which once again entered the public eye, was now thoroughly taken seriously, and many people began to investigate the true strength of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. In just a few days, news about the Prince of Jinbei's estate was investigated by all these forces. For example, the Prince of Jinbei's estate also had 2 great generals. Zhao Zilong was openly a general of the Dharma aspect realm, while the cultivation of that demonic god Lu Bu was not very clear. However, many people believe that the cultivation of that demonic god Lu Bu had already reached the Dharma aspect realm. After all, how could a general who could stand alongside White Horse Silver Spear Zhao Zilong be weak? At the same time, just as Chu Fan was making a name for himself throughout Tianjiao City, many uninvited guests arrived at the Prince of Jinbei's estate in the northern territory of the Great Yin dynasty today. As night fell, men in black appeared one after another in the Prince of Jinbei's estate. These men in black were extremely fast, taking only a few breaths to deal with a large number of Prince of Jinbei's estate guards. Someone has broken into the Prince of Jinbei's estate. It seems I have no choice but to act. In a courtyard in a corner of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, the old prince, who had already gone to sleep, suddenly sensed the aura of intruders. He then slowly picked up the sword box by his hand and walked out. At this moment, old Prince of Jinbei, Chu Long, in the pavilion, naturally also noticed the changes in the Prince of Jinbei's estate, and he frowned as he looked down. What a grand move. They actually dispatched 7 cultivators of the spirit roaming realm and 1 expert of the half-step Faxiang realm. During this period, Chu Long had also successfully broken through to the half-step Faxiang realm, so he now also sensed the aura of those men in black outside. It's probably the Great Yin imperial family making a move. After all, we have already taken down the entire western region and more than half of the eastern region. Jia Qiming came to Chu Long's side and slowly spoke. They both naturally knew the results of Yu Fei and Chen Qingji's wars during this time. So, after receiving the battle reports from Yu Fei and Chen Qingji, they had been setting up an ambush in the Prince of Jinbei's estate, but they had not expected the cultivators dispatched this time to be so strong. It shouldn't be. After all, the Great Yin dynasty has probably only just received news about the western and eastern regions, and it's impossible for them to react so quickly. It should be that something happened on Zhao Fan's side that thoroughly enraged the Great Yin dynasty. Chu Long shook his head after hearing Jia Qiming's words, then looked towards the direction of the Fengyin dynasty with a worried gaze. The Great Yin dynasty choosing to attack the Prince of Jinbei's estate now must be because of some unexpected event on his grandson's side. Nothing should happen on Zhao Fan's side. If something does happen, it would be Zhao Fan killing a certain powerhouse of the Great Yin dynasty, which would then enrage the entire Great Yin dynasty and make them choose to attack our Prince of Jinbei's estate. Jia Qiming immediately understood after hearing Chu Long's words, and at the same time, he also had a guess in his heart. No matter what, let's deal with the enemies outside first. Chu Long naturally knew the meaning behind Jia Qiming's words, so he waved his hand and said, "Act." After Chu Long finished speaking to Jia Qiming, his majestic voice spread throughout the Prince of Jinbei's estate. As Chu Long's words fell, many men in black appeared in the Prince of Jinbei's estate, and among these men in black, there were actually 6 existences of the spirit roaming realm, with 2 of them having reached the late Xinyu realm. Subsequently, these men in black from the Prince of Jinbei's estate engaged in battle with the man in black who had invaded the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Chu Long and Jia Qiming also directly flew down from the pavilion, standing on the eaves and looking at the man in black in front of them. Directly opposite them was the man in black of the half-step Faxiang realm. This man in black of the half-step Faxiang realm did not choose to fight with the man in black of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, but instead chose to directly come and find Chu Long. I didn't expect, Murong Xiao, you old fellow are still alive. Chu Long came to the side of this man in black, and upon sensing this familiar aura, he immediately recognized the identity of this man in black. He looked at the man in black in front of him with a playful gaze. You Chu Long haven't died, so how could I, Murong Xiao, die? This man in black of the half-step Faxiang realm from Great Yin was not surprised after hearing Chu Long's words. Instead, he took off the mask on his face, revealing an aged face with a hint of dignity. This person was none other than the previous emperor of Great Yin, Murong Xiao, who had disappeared after abdicating to Murong Li more than 10 years ago. Looking at Chu Long in front of him, the previous emperor of Great Yan's eyes were filled with killing intent. You think you can kill me with just that? Chu Long also completely unleashed the aura of the half-step Faxiang realm on his body at this moment, then looked leisurely at Murong Xiao in front of him. The Prince of Jinbei's estate is indeed not simple. You, whose foundation was damaged, were actually able to break through to the half-step Faxiang realm. Looking at the aura on Chu Long's body, which also belonged to the half-step Faxiang realm, Murong Xiao's brows suddenly furrowed tightly. Chapter 105 Night Battle at the Prince of Jinbei's mansion. Old Huang makes his move. One must know that Chu Long's foundation was once severely damaged by the old ancestor of Great Yin, making it impossible for him to break through. But now, Chu Long has also reached the half-step Faxiang realm. This means that Chu Long has resolved his foundation issues. Whether my Prince of Jinbei's estate is simple or not, what does it have to do with your Great Yin Imperial Dynasty? However, since you have arrived here today, then stay here. A murderous intent bloomed in Chu Long's eyes as he directly attacked Murong Xiao. At this moment, he held nothing back. His terrifying chi directly assaulted Murong Xiao. Murong Xiao, fearless, met Chu Long's attack head-on. Soon, the former Prince of Jinbei and the previous emperor of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty were locked in battle. Every move and every stance between the two carried a powerful killing intent. Jia Qiming, seeing that the battle had already begun, immediately went to another battlefield to assist the other cultivators of the spirit roaming realm from the Prince of Jinbei's estate. The battle at the Prince of Jinbei's estate was extremely fierce, and many cultivators in the vicinity also noticed the fighting. However, the Prince of Jinbei's estate had already set up ambushes around its perimeter, so when these cultivators intended to investigate, army after army appeared, stopping them. What exactly happened at the Prince of Jinbei's estate? The fluctuations from such a battle indicate at least a spirit roaming realm expert. Could it be that a spirit roaming realm expert is assassinating the Prince of Jinbei's estate? Didn't you see so many armies outside the Prince of Jinbei's estate? Clearly, the prince had made preparations long ago. Now, he just doesn't want those assassins to escape. I really don't know which fool is trying to assassinate the prince. For so many years, people have often tried to assassinate the young master, but now they dare to openly assassinate the prince. They must be tired of living. I hope the prince quickly slays this assassin. How could someone who assassinates the prince possibly live? It's a pity my strength is too weak to help the prince. The cultivators outside the Prince of Jinbei's estate looked on with anger. Of course, their anger at this moment was not directed at the Prince of Jinbei's estate, but at the assassins targeting it. After all, cultivators throughout the Northern Territory held the Prince of Jinbei's estate in high regard. One could say that in the entire Northern Territory, you might not know who the Emperor of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty is, but you absolutely must know who the Prince of Jinbei is. It could even be said that if the Prince of Jinbei's estate asked them to revolt and conquer the entire Great Yin Imperial Dynasty, they would not object in the slightest. Just as the outside cultivators were praying for the Prince of Jinbei's estate, old Huang, who was rushing towards the battlefield, suddenly sensed something amiss. He then changed direction. His figure quickly vanished from his original spot. At this moment, in a courtyard of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, Feng Shiran was also awakened by the assassins. She quickly put on her clothes and came outside the courtyard. The surrounding guards and maids all appeared by her side, protecting her. We pay our respects, princess. Upon seeing Feng Shiran emerge, the guards and maids all bowed to her. What's happening outside? Feng Shiran waved her hand at the guards and maids in front of her, then casually asked the guard captain. Reporting to the princess, assassins have invaded the Prince of Jinbei's estate. The old prince has ordered us to protect the princess. The guard captain did not hesitate after hearing Feng Shiran's words and immediately reported the situation outside. Old Prince of Jinbei, Chu Long, had made arrangements some time ago, so this Grotto Heaven Realm guard captain had been here protecting Feng Shiran's safety for a while. From this, one could see Chu Long's concern for Feng Shiran's safety, as he casually dispatched a Grotto Heaven Realm guard to protect his daughter-in-law. "Princess, please step back. Enemies are approaching." Just as Feng Shiran was about to say something, the Grotto Heaven Realm guard captain's expression suddenly turned solemn, and he gazed intently at the dark sky. "I didn't expect the Grotto Heaven Realm captain to be able to detect our presence. It seems not all of the Prince of Jinbei's estate's guards are useless." No sooner had the guard captain's words fallen than a sneer came from the dark night sky. Then, dozens of men in black appeared on the eaves in front. The leader among them was a eunuch, but this eunuch's cultivation had also reached the Grotto Heaven Realm. Clearly, the great Yin Imperial Dynasty had come prepared this time. "I didn't expect a eunuch could also cultivate to the Grotto Heaven Realm." The guard captain of the Prince of Jinbei's estate immediately mocked when he saw the eunuch. "You're courting death." The eunuch was thoroughly enraged upon hearing the guard captain of the Prince of Jinbei's estate's words. He quickly transformed into a black shadow and attacked towards the guard captain. The men in black behind him also descended towards the guards of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. In an instant, a battlefield appeared in front of Feng Shiran, while the several divine power realm maids around Feng Shiran protected her, constantly retreating. In just a few breaths, they had withdrawn from the battlefield. However, at this moment, a bright silver light streaked through the darkness, like a meteor, directly striking towards Feng Shiran. The Grotto Heaven Realm Guard captain of the Prince of Jinbei's estate instantly showed despair in his eyes upon seeing this scene. He completely disregarded the eunuch in front of him and flew directly towards Feng Shiran. But how could a eunuch in front of him give him such an opportunity? The eunuch struck the guard captain of the Prince of Jinbei's estate with a single punch. Instantly, the guard captain of the Prince of Jinbei's estate was sent flying. At this moment, the several divine power realm maids around Feng Shiran also had a look of resolve to die. They surrounded Feng Shiran, using their bodies to block the attack. Feng Shiran also hadn't expected such a powerful expert to assassinate her. At this moment, many thoughts flashed through her mind, and a feeling of unwillingness spread within her heart. However, at this critical moment, the sound of a long sword cutting through the air entered everyone's ears. Then, a long sword appeared in front of Feng Shiran, blocking the silver light from earlier. The next moment, a blur appeared in front of Feng Shiran. Who else could it be but Old Huang? Old Huang gently patted the sword box in his hand, grinned at Feng Shiran, and then leaped onto the eaves. The next second, he once again gently patted the sword box in his hand, and his sword box immediately opened. The sword that had just blocked the assassination returned to his sword box. "Since your excellency has arrived, why not show yourself?" Old Huang's leisurely voice emanated from the eaves, his gaze fixed on the night sky ahead. Chapter 106 The Unfathomable Old Huang, Battle Over. When the crowd below heard Old Huang's voice, they all looked towards the pitch-black night sky. Although they couldn't see anything in the dark sky at that moment, they knew a peerless powerhouse existed there. "I didn't expect the Prince of Jinbei's estate to have such an expert." Just then, a hoarse voice slowly drifted down from the night sky. Immediately afterward, a black figure appeared on the eaves in front of Old Huang. This figure emitted the aura of the half-step Faxiang realm, and his gaze was fixed solemnly on Old Huang. Then, he gently raised his hand, and the precious sword lying on the ground appeared in his grasp. "I'm not some expert. I'm just a groom beside the young master. However, since you intend to harm the madam now, then stay here today." Old Huang grinned at the man in black before him, a playful look on his face. At that moment, he truly looked like a simple groom. The next second, he lightly tapped the sword box in his hand with his finger, and the sword box before him was completely opened. Subsequently, the swords inside his sword box appeared in everyone's sight. Sword 1. A single sword cleaves the dust, dragon, and serpent run. As Old Huang gave a low shout, a streak of silver light flew out from the sword box. This silver light shot directly towards the man in black before him, and the entire space was filled with a terrifying sense of oppression. Seeing this, the man in black hastily held his precious sword to block the silver light. However, the man in black had severely underestimated the power of this sword. The moment the long sword in his hand collided with the flying sword, he was sent flying backward, and his body slammed heavily into the courtyard below. After sensing the terrifying power of that strike, the man in black finally realized that Old Huang's strength was not as simple as he had imagined. He quickly climbed up from the ground. The next second, he transformed into a black silhouette and vanished from the spot. "Since you came, how could I let you leave?" Old Huang chuckled as he watched the figure, which had turned into a black shadow, flying towards the outside of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Then, he tapped the sword box before him with his finger again, and his low voice rang out once more. "Sword 2. Two polarities give birth to the twin lotus." Following this low voice, a streak of light flew out once again from the sword box in front of Old Huang. Then, two streaks of light directly pierced the sky and chased after the man in black. In just an instant, a miserable cry was heard coming from the sky. The next second, the two streaks of light that had flown out returned to Old Huang's sword box, transforming back into silver light. Having finished all this, Old Huang chuckled and closed the sword box before him. "Madam, Old Huang will take his leave now." Holding the sword box in his arms, Old Huang grinned at Feng Shiran below and prepared to leave. However, upon seeing the man in black below, Old Huang still released a terrifying pressure, knocking him directly to the ground. Then, he leaped up, and in just a few bounds, he left the courtyard where Feng Shiran was located. "Chunju, do you know this groom beside Chu Fan?" Feng Shiran finally recovered from the recent events. She looked at her maidservant beside her with a shocked expression and asked, "Reporting to Madam, this servant girl does know that the heir apparent has such a groom beside him, but this servant girl did not know this groom's strength was so formidable." After hearing Feng Shiran's words, Chunju also looked in the direction Old Huang had left with a shocked expression. She had known of Old Huang's existence from the start, but she never imagined that the seemingly inconspicuous groom beside their heir apparent would be so terrifying. One must know that the strength of the man in black who just appeared had probably reached the spirit roaming realm, yet he was so utterly defeated by this groom. However, even she was wrong. The man in black just now was not merely in the spirit roaming realm. He had reached the legendary half-step Faxiang realm. If she knew that the man in black's strength had reached the half-step Faxiang realm, she would probably be even more shocked. On the other side, Old Huang had already appeared beside Chu Long and the others. He stood on the rooftop of the tallest building in the Prince of Junbei's estate, holding his sword box. His appearance naturally instantly caught the attention of Chu Long and the others in the Prince of Junbei's estate. When the Prince of Junbei saw the newcomer, his eyes were filled with shock. Although he also felt that Old Huang was not simple, he never expected such an ordinary groom to have reached the Dharma aspect realm. Sword 1. A single sword cleaves the dust, dragon and serpent run. Sword 2. Two polarities give birth to the twin lotus. After Old Huang appeared, he did not choose to observe. He gently patted the sword box in his arms, and his low voice rang out once more in the pitch-black night sky. Immediately afterward, two streaks of silver light passed through the space in front of him. The next second, these two streaks of silver light appear beside Chu Long, quickly slicing past him and instantly piercing the great yin powerhouse of the half-step Faxiang realm standing before Chu Long. After piercing this great yin powerhouse of the half-step Faxiang realm, the two flying swords did not stop. Instead, they continued to fly towards the cultivators of the spirit roaming realm below. The power carried by Old Huang's two flying swords was no weaker than the Dharma aspect realm. It could be said that even an ordinary expert of the early phase of the Dharma aspect realm could not resist it, let alone these cultivators of the spirit roaming realm below. In just a few breaths, the two flying swords directly executed several great yin cultivators of the spirit roaming realm below. Having finished all this, Old Huang recalled the two flying swords, grinned at Chu Long, and then instantly transformed into a phantom and vanished from spot. "Your Highness, I didn't expect Chu Fan to have such a person beside him. He truly hides his strength deeply." At this time, Jia Qiming also came to Chu Long's side. Looking at Old Huang's departing figure, his eyes were full of disbelief. During this period, it wasn't that they hadn't investigated Old Huang's background, but from beginning to end, they had all believed Old Huang was an ordinary person. Because Old Huang had never made a move since his appearance, no one suspected he was a powerhouse. After all, how could a powerhouse look like this? But it was only today, when Old Huang took action, that they clearly realized how terrifying Old Huang's strength truly was. One must know that the great yin powerhouse of the half-step Faxiang realm just now couldn't even withstand two moves in his hands. It could even be said that if Old Huang truly wanted to kill this great yin powerhouse of the half-step Faxiang realm, only one move would be needed. Indeed, we underestimated the experts surrounding Chu Fan. Chu Long was also shocked, but when he thought of the continuous stream of experts surrounding Chu Fan, the shock on his face slowly dissipated. After all, Chu Fan had quite a few experts by his side. Chapter 107 Chu Fan and Others' Achilles' Heel, the Special Heavenly Dao Alliance. First, let's stabilize the situation in the Prince of Junbei's estate. Chu Long watched the direction Old Huang left in, took a deep breath, and then turned his head to instruct Jia Qiming. After speaking, he quickly left. Jia Qiming's movements were also very swift. In just half an hour, the Prince of Junbei's estate returned to its initial tranquility. The army surrounding the Prince of Junbei's estate outside also directly withdrew. Has the prince resolved the assassins? That must be the case. After all, the prince is a powerhouse of the spirit roaming realm. Isn't it easy for him to deal with a few assassins? I don't know where those damned assassins came from, daring to come to the Prince of Jinbei's estate to assassinate the prince. If I found out, I would definitely avenge the prince. Me too. I would protect the prince even if it cost me my life. The two of you couldn't protect the prince. After all, the prince is a master of the spirit roaming realm. As the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate withdrew, the common people who had been worried about the safety of the old Prince Jinbei happily cheered. After all, the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate had already withdrawn, which meant that the assassination attempt was over, and their prince was safe and sound. A few days passed in the blink of an eye, and the news of the Prince of Jinbei's attempted assassination quickly spread, instantly stirring up a commotion throughout the northern territory. However, once it was confirmed that no one in the Prince of Jinbei's estate had suffered an accident, the matter was quickly settled, as assassination attempts on the Prince of Jinbei's estate were not uncommon. In Tianjiao City, Chu Fan also received news of the assassination attempt on the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Naturally, possessing the net of Luo, he knew who had attempted to assassinate the Prince of Jinbei's estate. This damned Great Yin, daring to assassinate my Prince of Jinbei's estate. They must be tired of living, Qing Yao said, filled with resentment, next to Chu Fan. She had not expected the Great Yin dynasty to still dare to assassinate the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Chu Fan, standing beside her, remained silent with a gloomy expression. This time, the Great Yin dynasty had truly provoked his anger. If the Great Yin dynasty had dispatched powerhouses to assassinate him, he would not have been too surprised, as there was a life-and-death feud between him and the Great Yin dynasty. But he had not expected the Great Yin dynasty to choose to assassinate the Prince of Jinbei's estate this time, and the consequences would have been unimaginable if he had not left old Huang behind. After all, no one could have known that the Great Yin dynasty had actually sent an existence at the half-step Faxiang realm to assassinate his mother. Of course, even without old Huang present, his mother would not have encountered any trouble. The net of Luo would ensure his mother's safety, even if it meant giving their all. However, this assassination attempt by the Great Yin dynasty had thoroughly enraged him. Young master, let Yuan Qingdu exterminate the entire Great Yin imperial family. Yuan Qingdu looked in the direction of the Great Yin dynasty's base with even greater resentment. Relying on his king realm cultivation, destroying the entire Great Yin imperial family would be effortless for him. Chu Fan did not speak upon hearing Yuan Qingdu's words. Instead, he was contemplating how to deal with the Great Yin dynasty. Chu Fan, you had better not let him act, or what awaits you will be an even stronger existence. Just then, Xiao Zi, who was beside Chu Fan, spoke slowly, and her beautiful eyes were filled with worry. Why can't Yuan Qingdu act? Chu Fan, who was deep in thought, was somewhat surprised upon hearing Xiao Zi's words, so he raised his head and questioned her. The other people also looked curiously at Xiao Zi, wondering if their current strength was insufficient to resolve a mere Great Yin dynasty. Do you know which force is the strongest in the central domain? Seeing Chu Fan looking at her with that expression, Xiao Zi avoided his gaze, then changed the subject and spoke to him. Isn't it the several holy lands? Chu Fan truly did not know much about the central domain, but in his mind, the strongest forces in the central domain should be those major powers, which were exactly the several holy lands. The strongest in the central domain is not necessarily us, the several holy lands, although it can also be said to be us. However, there is an extremely special existence. Its strength is not inferior to our several holy lands. It can even be said to be stronger than us, but it rarely takes action. Xiao Zi spoke slowly after hearing Chu Fan's words. When she mentioned this force, a hint of worry appeared in her eyes. It turned out that the name of this force was the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Initially, the Heavenly Dao Alliance's strength was below that of the several holy lands, but as the Heavenly Dao Alliance continuously grew stronger, it had surpassed their several holy lands over the past 10,000 years. It could be said that even Taishan Holy Land and the other holy lands of the Central Domain would not dare to provoke the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Moreover, as the Heavenly Dao Alliance continuously grew stronger, the other four domains, East, South, West, and North, were all successfully incorporated into the Heavenly Dao Alliance's jurisdiction. It could even be said that the Heavenly Dao Alliance was continuously encroaching upon the Central Domain. If it weren't for the several holy lands still being able to contend with the Heavenly Dao Alliance, then the Heavenly Dao Alliance could be called the number one force under heaven. The main reason Xiao Zi had just stopped Chu Fan was that the Heavenly Dao Alliance did not permit powerhouses to directly destroy a nation. After all, if a nation were destroyed by a single powerhouse, all imperial dynasties would live in fear. The Heavenly Dao Alliance would not allow such an existence to appear, but if it was a conflict between nations, the Heavenly Dao Alliance would not interfere. After all, the rise and fall of an imperial dynasty meant nothing to the Heavenly Dao Alliance. The Heavenly Dao Alliance has existed for hundreds of thousands of years, while an imperial dynasty that manages to exist for tens of thousands of years is already considered ancient, much less a small imperial dynasty like those in the Eastern Domain. Therefore, if Chu Fan replaced the Great Yin Dynasty using his army, the Heavenly Dao Alliance would say nothing. But if he relied on a powerhouse to directly sweep across the entire Great Yin Dynasty and destroy it, then what awaited Chu Fan would be the sanctions of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. The Heavenly Dao Alliance's strength is not inferior to the several holy lands in the Central Domain, so saints are quite common within the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Simply dispatching one saint is something the current Chu Fan cannot resist. So that's how it is. If I destroy the 4 great dynasties in the entire Eastern Domain and establish a new imperial dynasty, will the Heavenly Dao Alliance interfere? After hearing Zhao Zi's explanation, Chu Fan was somewhat surprised. He hadn't expected the Central Domain to have such a force, so he began questioning Zhao Zi. After all, if the Heavenly Dao Alliance did not allow the forces of the Eastern Domain to unify, then his subsequent plans would become difficult. Upon hearing Chu Fan's words, the others all turned their gazes toward Zhao Zi. Although they were not afraid of this so-called Heavenly Dao Alliance, they also did not want the Heavenly Dao Alliance to interfere. Chapter 108 The Battle of the Prodigies arrives. First encounter with Murong Li. After hearing Chu Fan's words, Zhao Zi laughed. Her smile was as warm as winter sunshine. The Heavenly Dao Alliance will not participate in wars between imperial dynasties. You could say that if you have the strength, you can unify the entire Eastern region. However, at that time, you will need to go to the Heavenly Dao Alliance for certification. Only imperial dynasties certified by the Heavenly Dao Alliance will be recognized by the world's cultivators. Zhao Zi looked at Chu Fan with satisfaction and said, after all, if Chu Fan could truly unify the entire Eastern region, she would genuinely think highly of him. I still need certification from the Heavenly Dao Alliance? Chu Fan felt a bit unhappy after hearing Zhao Zi's words. Having undergone transmigration, he naturally knew that the so-called Heavenly Dao Alliance would definitely not be so simple. Moreover, even if the Heavenly Dao Alliance appeared very fair on the surface, who knew if it would remain as impartial after so many years of development? Furthermore, if the Heavenly Dao Alliance truly was as fair as it seemed, why would it constantly encroach upon other regions? However, Chu Fan, whose strength was currently insufficient, naturally wouldn't provoke the Heavenly Dao Alliance. After all, that was an existence even Holy Lands dared not offend, and his strongest summon character was merely a minor king realm cultivator. Holy Lands possessed many saint-level cultivators, and even saint-king-level cultivators were common, let alone the legendary great saint-level experts. Moreover, Chu Fan could guess that quasi-emperor-level cultivators were definitely hidden within the Holy Lands. As for great emperor-level cultivators, Chu Fan believed the Holy Lands did not possess them, because if a great emperor-level existence resided within the Holy Lands, how could they possibly fear the Heavenly Dao Alliance? The main goal now is to destroy the Great Yin Dynasty, then activate the System Mall, and see if the System Mall contains anything that would allow me to no longer fear the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Chu Fan began to ponder seriously, and, at that moment, he also found the task he needed to prioritize. The most important thing now was to establish an imperial dynasty. And the simplest way to establish an imperial dynasty was to destroy the Great Yin Dynasty. Knowing about the existence of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, Chu Fan spent the next few days contemplating how to quickly improve his strength and how to face the Heavenly Dao Alliance in the future. A few days quickly passed, and on this day, the entire Tianjiao city was packed with people. All the cultivators rushed towards the center of Tianjiao city, and Chu Fan and his group were no exception. A massive mountain peak stood in the very center of Tianjiao city, and upon this peak was an extremely enormous fighting platform. Surrounding the fighting platform were numerous smaller hills, varying in size. Of course, the most noticeable were the 4 peaks, standing separately in the east, south, west, and north. Each peak had a palace built upon it, and directly in front of the palace was the viewing platform. Aside from these 4 peaks, hundreds of smaller peaks of various sizes stood nearby. Among them, the peak belonging to the Prince of Jinbei's estate was not far from the peak of the Great Yin Dynasty. Led by Chu Fan, the group slowly entered the smaller peak belonging to the Prince of Jinbei's estate under the curious gazes of the crowd. Although this peak was not considered large among the many others, accommodating thousands of people was not an issue. More importantly, the viewing platform on the peak was laden with various spiritual fruits, looking extremely tempting. Is this the venue for the heavenly prodigy battle? It truly is enormous. Chu Fan looked at the fighting platform below, which was the size of a small world, his eyes filled with emotion. If he hadn't cultivated, he probably wouldn't have been able to clearly see the entire fighting platform before him. What is this? Even the fighting grounds for the intersect disciples of my Taishan Holy Land are bigger than this. Xiao Zi said proudly after hearing Chu Fan's words. She wasn't too shocked by the Tianjiao City fighting platform. Instead, she found it somewhat rudimentary. Can a holy land be compared to this place? Holy lands are legendary, lofty places. This is just the Eastern region's heavenly prodigy battle platform. Chu Fan rolled his eyes at Xiao Zi after hearing her words, then continued to gaze leisurely at the fighting platform ahead. Miss Xiao, would you like to go down and play a bit? Chu Fan, looking at Xiao Zi in her Zi robes before him, suddenly felt mischievous and spoke to her leisurely. They are all too weak. They are not worth me making a move. Xiao Zi spoke with a look of pride after hearing Chu Fan's words. She was a true disciple and a quasi-saintess existence of a holy land. She truly couldn't muster any interest in this eastern region. After all, the actual cultivation of the so-called prodigies in the eastern region was merely the divine power realm. The current Xiao Zi had already reached the Dharma aspect realm, and even the late Dharma aspect stage. How could she possibly attack mere minor cultivators in the divine power realm? But your cultivation has also reached the Dharma aspect realm. Are you planning to bully these minor cultivators in the divine power realm? Xiao Zi suddenly remembered that Chu Fan's cultivation beside her was also the Dharma aspect realm. So she asked curiously, leaning closer to Chu Fan at the same time. A delicate fragrance wafted into Chu Fan's nose. When did I ever say I was going to participate in this heavenly prodigy battle? Chu Fan took a deep breath and stared at Xiao Zi as he spoke, his tone carrying a hint of disdain. After all, at this moment, he certainly had the confidence to look down on these so-called Eastern region prodigies. If you're not participating, why did you come to Tianjiao City? Xiao Zi became even more curious after hearing Chu Fan's words, as it seemed pointless for Chu Fan to come to Tianjiao if he wasn't participating. Her two large eyes fixed on Chu Fan. Heavenly secrets must not be divulged. Chu Fan slowly spoke under Xiao Zi's curious gaze, a faint smile playing on his lips. You? Xiao Zi didn't react immediately after hearing Chu Fan's words, but when she did, a faint blush appeared on her face. Chu Fan laughed heartily at Xiao Zi's appearance. However, just then, Chu Fan suddenly felt a gaze full of killing intent directed toward him. He immediately dropped the smile on his face and began to pinpoint the direction the killing intent originated from. The killing intent came from the peak belonging to the Great Yin Dynasty, where a middle-aged man wearing a golden robe was staring at him with a gaze full of killing intent. Chu Fan only needed a single glance to guess this person's identity. If he wasn't mistaken, this man was Murong Li, the sovereign of the Great Yin Dynasty. Xiao Zi naturally felt this surge of killing intent as well, so she looked in the direction from which it came. Instantly, Xiao Zi also saw Murong Li's gaze filled with killing intent. Is he your emperor of Great Yin? Xiao Zi glanced briefly at Murong Li before slowly turning her head back to look at Chu Fan and ask. To her, Murong Li was an insignificant small figure, so she naturally wouldn't pay him much attention. Chapter 109: The Gaze of the Four Great Dynasty Emperors, the lively scene at Tianjiao Peak. Although Chu Fan did not know the exact appearance of the Emperor of Great Yin, he saw that it was the position reserved for Great Yin, and the middle-aged man was also wearing imperial yellow robes. Of course, what was more important was the extremely strong killing intent in this person's eyes directed at him. So it could only be the Emperor of Great Yin. That must be the Emperor of Great Yin, right? Otherwise, who else would harbor such intense, killing intent toward me? Chu Fan nodded nonchalantly toward Xiao Zi, even though the Emperor of Great Yin was considered the ruler of the Eastern region's four great dynasties. However, Chu Fan had never taken him seriously, as in Chu Fan's view, Murong Li of Great Yin was truly insignificant. I didn't expect the killing intent from your Emperor of Great Yin to be quite strong. After hearing Chu Fan's words, Xiao Zi couldn't help but tease him, her eyes carrying a hint of excitement and amusement. Ha ha! After all, I'm the one who caused the Great Yin imperial family heavy losses. How could he not harbor killing intent when he sees me? Chu Fan naturally knew why the Emperor of Great Yin carried such powerful killing intent toward him. After all, he had caused the entire Great Yin heavy losses during this period, even causing two old ancestors in the Dharma aspect realm to perish. Chu Fan paid no attention to Murong Li. He sat down without a care and began eating the spiritual fruits on the table, acting as if he hadn't even noticed the Emperor of Great Yin. Of course, at this moment, it wasn't just the Emperor of Great Yin who noticed Chu Fan. The rulers of the other three great dynasties had also taken notice of him. Is he the heir of the prince of Junbei's estate? He is quite handsome. His appearance could probably rank among the best in the entire eastern region. On the side of the Mingyuan dynasty, a woman dressed in plain white robes looked in Chu Fan's direction and spoke leisurely, a great deal of admiration visible in her eyes. Indeed, who would have thought that the heir of the prince of Junbei's estate, who looks so handsome, would act so domineeringly? Mengyu heard the woman's words and also looked toward Chu Fan with eyes full of light, still remembering what Chu Fan had done a few days prior. At that time, Chu Fan had completely captured the attention of her, the Mingyuan princess. He truly is an interesting little one. I just wonder if he can be recruited by my Mingyuan dynasty. Mengyu, standing nearby, also looked toward Chu Fan with great interest. When Mengyu heard her imperial father's words, she somehow felt that her imperial father would not have the chance to recruit Chu Fan. Is he the heir of the prince of Junbei's estate? The woman beside him seems extraordinary. Yun Xiaotian of the Fengyun dynasty naturally also cast his gaze toward Chu Fan's direction at this time. As one of the main figures involved in the recent events, Yun Xiaotian's impression of Chu Fan was naturally very clear. Moreover, Chu Fan had directly insulted the face of their Fengyun dynasty. If Chu Fan hadn't had 3 existences in the perfected Dharma aspect realm by his side, Yun Xiaotian wouldn't be seeing Chu Fan here right now. After all, since Chu Fan had slapped the face of their Fengyun dynasty so thoroughly, if those 3 perfected Dharma aspect realm experts hadn't been present, the Fengyun dynasty would definitely have acted immediately. Imperial brother, after the heavenly prodigy battle ends, let's kill him. Yin Qingtian looked at Chu Fan with a face full of fury. After all, he'd been rubbed in the ground by Chu Fan recently, and now, seeing Chu Fan, the killing intent on his face instantly became impossible to hide. No rush. We will choose to act after the great Yin dynasty makes their move against him. Who knows if Chu Fan has any hidden trump cards? Yun Xiaotian shook his head after hearing Yun Qingtian's words. He would not mindlessly plan to directly assassinate Chu Fan like Yun Qingtian. Just considering that Chu Fan currently has 3 existences in the perfected Dharma aspect realm by his side, assassinating Chu Fan would be extremely difficult relying on those 3 perfected Dharma aspect realm experts. Furthermore, who knows if Chu Fan has any other hidden experts by his side? If Chu Fan does have hidden experts, how could they possibly succeed in an assassination? Of course, the most important thing is that the conflict between Chu Fan and the great Yin dynasty is already irreconcilable. So why should they wade into this muddy water? Now, smart people know that they can reap the benefits of the conflict later on. Yin Qingtian was full of unwillingness after hearing Yun Xiaotian's words, but he dared not deny his imperial brother's decision. He could only look toward Chu Fan's direction with an unwilling expression. If looks could kill Chu Fan, then Chu Fan would probably have been torn to shreds by him already. At the same time, in the Tianxin dynasty, the dynasty ruler and the prince of the Tianxin dynasty were also curiously sizing up Chu Fan. After all, this person was the main subject of discussion among all cultivators during this period. As time slowly passed, the entire heavenly prodigy peak quickly became crowded with people, and the cultivators who arrived there began discussing the powerful prodigies participating in this heavenly prodigy battle. This session of the heavenly prodigy battle is probably the strongest ever. I heard that the strength of many prodigies has already reached the divine power realm. You must know that the strongest person in the last session only had the strength of the half-step divine power realm. That's right, the cultivation of the 4 great prodigies of our eastern region has already reached the divine power realm. The top 4 spots on the heavenly prodigy ranking this time will likely fall into their hands. Who knows? After all, who knows if there are any hidden prodigies in our eastern region? If there are, the top spots might not fall into their hands. I heard that the 4th prince of the Fengyun dynasty seems to have entered the divine power realm long ago, and his strength is no weaker than the 4 great prodigies of the eastern region. There's also Yu of Heavenly Sword Mountain. His strength also seems to have reached the divine power realm. It's just unknown whether he has reached the divine power early stage or the divine power middle stage. Is it possible that the heir of the prince of Junbei's estate has also reached the divine power realm? How could he possibly reach the divine power realm? Although he is also considered a prodigy, it would still be difficult for his strength to reach the divine power realm. I certainly don't believe he has reached the divine power realm. At this time, the prodigies on Heavenly Prodigy Peak were all discussing the main prodigies participating in this Heavenly Prodigy battle. As the discussion continued, the topic suddenly shifted, and they abruptly turned their attention to Chu Fan. Some people felt that since the prince of Junbei's estate was so deeply hidden, Chu Fan's strength might also be deeply concealed, but others thought this was false. After all, no matter how deeply Chu Fan's strength was hidden, given his current age, he shouldn't be able to enter the divine power realm. However, many people still believe that Chu Fan's strength could make it onto the Heavenly Prodigy ranking, and some even felt that Chu Fan's deeply hidden strength might make him the dark horse of this session. Of course, there weren't many people who thought this way. Furthermore, what they didn't know was that Chu Fan's strength had already reached a level they could not imagine. Chapter 1:10 Azure Bird joins the battle. Heavenly Pride Arena opens. Chu Fan naturally heard the discussions outside, but he merely smiled about them. After all, with his current strength, how could he possibly participate in the Heavenly Prodigy battle? Moreover, the current Heavenly Prodigy battle was like a group of children fighting to him. Since you said you won't participate, then who will represent the Prince of Jinbei's estate in the Heavenly Prodigy battle this time? Xiao Zi, who was beside Chu Fan, asked him with a curious gaze, her eyes filled with curiosity. After all, she truly did not know who the Prince of Jinbei's estate would send to participate in this Heavenly Prodigy battle. Furthermore, Xiao Zi knew that besides her senior brother, the only other person from the Prince of Jinbei's estate was Chu Fan, who was right in front of her. I plan to let Qingyao go. After all, Qingyao's age is still within the age range for the Heavenly Prodigy battle, and this way I won't have to be bored watching these weaklings peck at each other. In fact, Chu Fan had already thought of the candidate for this Heavenly Prodigy battle. The best person beside him to participate in the Heavenly Prodigy battle was Qingyao. Moreover, relying on Qingyao's cultivation that had already reached the spirit roaming realm, she could easily defeat all the prodigies and take the top spot on the Heavenly Prodigy ranking. Of course, this was also Chu Fan's mischievous streak. After all, even if their Prince of Jinbei's estate didn't participate, it would still be fine. After hearing Chu Fan's words, Qingyao was somewhat surprised. She had not expected her heir to choose her to participate in this prodigy battle. However, since her heir wanted her to participate, then she would participate. If she participates, won't the first place in this prodigy battle still belong to your Prince of Jinbei's estate? After hearing Chu Fan's words, Xiao Zi immediately rolled her eyes at him. After all, Qingyao in front of her had already reached the spirit roaming realm. If she were allowed to participate in the Heavenly Prodigy battle, she would definitely take first place in the Eastern Domain Prodigy battle. What difference would that make compared to Chu Fan, a peerless prodigy of the Dharma aspect realm, participating in this Heavenly Prodigy battle, since both outcomes result in taking first place in the Heavenly Prodigy battle? I'm lazy, so I'll let Qingyao go and bring back first place. Chu Fan also guessed Xiao Zi's thoughts at this moment, so he simply waved his hand and said. Xiao Zi felt helpless looking at Chu Fan's relaxed demeanor. She had not expected Chu Fan, who was so laid back, to cultivate so quickly. Ever since she came to Chu Fan's side, Xiao Zi realized that Chu Fan had never seriously cultivated. But frustratingly, Chu Fan's cultivation still surpassed hers, which made Xiao Zi extremely perplexed. All contestants participating in the Heavenly Prodigy battle, please come forward to register. Just as all the major powers had arrived at Heavenly Prodigy Peak, an old man of the Shinyu realm appeared on the Heavenly Talon arena, his gaze slowly sweeping over all the powers, his voice resounding clearly in the ears of all the forces. As his voice fell, the representatives of those powers quickly came to the Heavenly Talon arena and submitted the names of those participating in this great battle. Upon hearing the words of the old man, Chu Fan looked toward Qingyao beside him. Seeing Chu Fan's gaze, Qingyao understood his meaning, so she instantly leaped onto the Heavenly Talon arena and handed her name to the old man. Qingyao's appearance on the stage attracted the attention of many people, as news about the Prince of Jinbei's estate had been circulating continuously during this period. They also wanted to know who the representative of the Prince of Jinbei's estate participating in the Heavenly Prodigy battle this time actually was. However, most people believe that the person from the Prince of Jinbei's estate participating in the Heavenly Prodigy battle this time should be Chu Fan, the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Chu Fan, you had better pray that you don't encounter this fourth prince. Otherwise, this fourth prince will leave you on the Heavenly Talon arena. After seeing Qingyao arrive on the stage, the fourth prince of the Fengyan dynasty looked fiercely toward Chu Fan's direction. During this time, he had naturally heard about the matters between Chu Fan and their Fengyan dynasty. Thus, this fourth prince of the Fengyan dynasty held deep hostility toward Chu Fan. Interesting. I hope to meet you on the arena. At the same time, NEWBIE of Heavenly Sword Mountain also looked toward Chu Fan's direction with a curious gaze. During this period, Chu Fan's name had naturally reached his ears, and he wanted to see what kind of strength this heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate possessed. Chu Fan, I wonder if your strength is worthy of me making a move. Gongsun Jian, who was holding a long sword, gazed deeply toward Chu Fan's location. He had noticed Chu Fan from the very beginning, and now seeing someone from the Prince of Jinbei's estate appear, he assumed Chu Fan had already registered for this Heavenly Prodigy battle. Has younger male cousin Chu Fan also registered? I hope younger male cousin Chu Fan's strength can cope with the upcoming great battle. From the direction of the Feng family, Feng Ziki looked toward Chu Fan's direction with a worried expression. During this period, she had naturally heard many things about Chu Fan and the Feng Dynasty. She had not expected her younger male cousin to be so troublesome, completely offending the Feng Dynasty in less than a month after arriving. But what surprised her even more was that her younger male cousin actually had 3 existences at the perfected Dharma aspect realm beside him. However, what these people did not know was that Chu Fan had not chosen to participate in this heavenly prodigy battle. The old man on the heavenly talent arena frowned after seeing the registration quota from the Prince of Jinbei's estate. He had not expected the person from the Prince of Jinbei's estate participating in the heavenly prodigy battle this time not to be Chu Fan, but a name he had never heard of. However, the old man did not make a fuss. Instead, he silently put away the list that Qing Yao had handed up. The next step was simple. The old man placed all the registered names into the stone pillars in front of him, and then 10 massive stone pillars on the heavenly talent arena emitted streaks of silver-white light. 2 names appeared on the body of each stone pillar, and at the same time, the heavenly talent arena was directly divided into 10 small arenas. Unfortunately, Qing Yao's name did not appear on the stone pillars in this round, meaning she clearly did not need to step onto the stage for the first round. I didn't expect the competition to be conducted in this manner. Chu Fan looked at the stone pillars on the heavenly talent arena with some surprise. This truly was the advanced technology of the Xuanhuan world. Forgive him, he had just assumed the prodigy battle would be held via a lottery draw. This method is already considered low-level. Our Taishan Holy Land is much more advanced than this. Xiao Zi said proudly after hearing Chu Fan's exclamation. She didn't know why, but in front of Chu Fan, she always wanted to assert her presence. Isn't that obvious? Your Taishan Holy Land is a holy land of the central domain. How could our small eastern domain possibly compare? Chu Fan couldn't help but roll his eyes at Xiao Zi's words. How could a place where the highest realm is only the Dharma aspect realm possibly compare to a behemoth like the Taishan Holy Land? After all, in the eyes of the Taishan Holy Land, the eastern domain truly counted for nothing.